A little bit.
Yay, we're live. Hi, guys.
Hello, everyone.
I don't know how many. We have quite a few in. I can never figure out how to count them, but we do have quite a few in. Hi, Lunar Feather, Owl's Perch, Opal, Witchy in the Woods, Sonia, Soul Dreamer, Silver Moon Donna, Nikki. Hi, guys. Happy New Year.
Hi,
Steven's coming to us from the future. It's already 2020 there. Woohoo!
Yes, it's 2020.
That's right.
2020.
Steven.
And I'm telling you, 2020 is, well, you're going to have to buckle up because it's going to be one of those years. I'm telling you from the future now. But don't worry, because we're sending Arnold Schwarzenegger back to where you are now to sort things out.
Can we trade them for you know who?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Does he realize they can have that one?
Yes, he knows.
We would take anybody.
When is 2020 where we are? That we still have a couple hours still. We'll be on Popcorn Party when 2020 actually hits here.
I'm going to try to have Alexa count it down. Ooh.
Oh, that'd be cool. Cool.
Alexa, count it down.
And actually, my my eldest son Frankie and my husband are going to be on too.
Yay! That's
Nice.
exciting.
Whoa.
I know it. I can't believe he said that. I'm like, does he really realize what I was trying to say? I don't care. Keep going on. All right. So we do have some questions to start out with. Now, what I need to know too is if you guys want to come on and ask a question live, like face to face, we will post the link and give you. No, I don't know. I don't want to. I suppose we can. I don't see where it's a big deal.
Click
We'll post the link and then we'll click on you and you can come on and ask your question and we'll try to answer it then. That sound good? Hi, Marge.
Hi, Marge.
Yay. So I'm eating a candy cane, just in case you're wondering. Lucy didn't know what it was, and I suppose it doesn't really look like a candy cane.
It doesn't. It's like,
I knew it was a candy cane.
So can we tell how many people are on? I just want to make sure that we give it enough time before we start answering questions. 21. It's New Year's Eve too, so it may not be, as many as we normally would get.
Right.
All right. Let's start. So the first question we got was Stephanie Taylor. Hi, Denise. Hi, Honey Outlet and MA. What a great way to end the year. I agree. I think this will be fun. Stephanie Taylor said, I would be interested in learning how one could use tarot with healing, Reiki, etc. So, yay. That was a good question. I liked that question. Do any of you have anything you want to say? I brought out some visual aids just in case for my answer.
I have a question for you. Do you know like those little like scissors that you get like in kits that like have like nail clippers and stuff like that? You know, like they look like. Do you have any of those?
Probably. Good luck. You can try to find it downstairs. I'm live with 1, 2, 3, 4 different people on with me. Downstairs, someplace in a nail kit.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like a beehive.
Wait, what was it? Distracted for a moment.
Yeah, okay. Let's go back to that. I would be interested in learning how one could use tarot with Reiki and healing, etc.
That's a really good question.
You guys want me to start, or anybody got any ideas before I start? I can talk forever. I hate to override.
I have no idea.
Go ahead, because
I know
Reiki and healing are not my jam.
I hear you. Okay, so
The only thing I thought of was using tarot to identify the main theme subject that that's behind the need for healing. You know, you're drawing a few cards to get to the root of the issue, and then applying whatever healing kind of system you want to address that.
Right.
That's a really good idea for sure. Absolutely. So, asking it the question, what is, what's going on? Where it is needs to be healed? Where's the main theme of what we need to work on? That kind of thing, and pulling a card. That's a good one. I was thinking too of, so I brought my chakra stones when I do Reiki anyways. Well, when I do a lot of different kinds of healing in person. I bring all my chakra stones and I bring my Reiki stones to kind of lay out. So I was thinking when I put these at each chakra, I could draw a card. And I've done this a couple times, or specifically if I knew there was a problem area, I'll draw a card that corresponds and I'll say, okay, the root chakra. Let me see, how's the root chakra going? Glad I brought my glasses. So it says two of cups. So the root chakra is actually doing pretty good. It's in partnership. It feels like it's connected to where it needs to be. So we don't need a whole lot of work on the root chakra. We can kind of just make sure that it's grounded completely and everything's working well. I also, so if you have like the Reiki healing symbols and stuff, you can say there's one Reiki symbol that is specifically more for physical healing. And then there's one that's more for spiritual and mental, emotional kind of healing. So I thought you could pull a card and say, okay, what needs more physical healing? Pull a card and say, Seven of Cups. So there's opportunities coming for physical healing. So we need to watch out for, what do we feel next? Is there something that I intuitively can feel that has an opportunity for physical healing? And you can do that. That's what I came up with, kind of off the top of my head, off the cuff kind of stuff. But all of those suggestions are really good. And really, when you're doing, you can pull spreads and stuff too. There's a million healing spreads that you can pull for, and same kind of thing that will say, like, where is the root cause of my problem for card 1, and what should I look out for card 2, and what can I look to specifically help me with this healing?
Right.
Those kind of things too. All right. Any other suggestions before we move on to this question?
Opal says, I'm drinking too, guys. Yes. Clink.
Woohoo. So what are we all drinking? I know I'm like such a badass here with my candy cane and ginger ale.
Yum. That actually sounds really good, though.
Put a little vodka.
Then there's me with my monster and coconut rum.
That sounds really good. I love coconut rum.
It is really good.
That's really good.
Steven, you got a drink or just tea or water or are you the one that's going to do Scotch shots with us?
No, I've got some lemonade.
Woo! See, you're a party animal just like me.
Oh boy.
Wine, ginger ale. Hey, Peggy's drinking ginger ale. That's good. I hope nobody walks around naked in Jen's house. Yeah, well.
Oh my God! I just from my vacation or Christmas from Matt's mom, or Lucian's mom. Sorry, a great recipe for homemade ginger ale with real ginger. Oh my God, to die for.
Oh, that'd be a good one to give Dana.
Yes, yes.
Because I was telling her it'd be better than store-bought ginger ale if you could figure out something with ginger.
I can send you. My mom sent me the recipe, so I can send it to you, Jen.
Awesome. That's a good idea. Mimosas. Somebody's drinking mimosas. I love it.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Yay. All right. I know I missed questions, Marge. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, because we're starting with the ones that were on the page anyways. Susie Kessinger said, I would like to know how to unlock your intuition in order to learn tarot for a beginner wanting to read intuitively.
Honestly, for
Okay.
me, because in the beginning, I thought I was good with being intuitive reader, and then I kind of struggled with it. So for me, the best way to really do is to just pull cards constantly and just see what you see within the card.
Yeah, so I read strictly intuitively. And the best way for me to explain it is like, do you remember taking the ink blot test in school? When they hold that up, first thought that
What do you
comes
see
to mind-
there? Yeah.
You've
that's
got to
good, that's
find you've got to find the deck that you connect with. And that, and for me, the more lushly drawn, vibrant decks, not not the cartoony, but like Wizards Tarot, like Tarot in Wonderland, like the really sceneful decks speak to me. And take your card when you first get your deck, and when you're connecting with it, just card after card, just do that card ink blot test and get to know them by looking at them and the first thought that comes to your mind, the first inspirational thought, and do that as you get to know your deck, and you will find that. And you can reference, of course, the booklet, but rely on that ink blot test intuition when you first look at that card.
I'm just going to quickly say, for me, what I remember telling myself was to go into the card and kind of visually walk around inside and try and visualize, okay, so what's going on in the photo and how can I relate to something that actually has happened in my life that I can pull upon and be like, okay, I'm familiar with this card because I've dealt with this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, as far as actually accessing intuition, and to begin with, we've said it 1,000 times on our various channels, but I'm going to say it again. Meditate.
Sure.
Meditate.
Yeah.
Sit and connect with that, and just connect to breathing and focusing on what your mind is trying to tell you.
Yeah, you can
As you get more into meditation, you will get more connected to intuition, and you will start drawing those connections easier.
Yeah, you could take that card, put it in front of you as an object of meditation, and project or meditate yourself into that scene.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a practice called path working the cards, which I've mentioned before for in the chat on Mama's tarot Tuesdays. It's literally you meditating with a card, and you pick up. Okay, I picked up the Magician, so I'm gonna look at the Magician, and I'm gonna focus on this card, and I'm gonna focus on breathing and looking at this card until I can visualize entering it and interacting with this character. Who is he? What's he telling me? What lesson does he have for me?
Definitely. And there's some decks that are really, really good for that too. I know some decks more than others are really good for, looking right into that card and jumping right in there. For sure. Stephen, any other thoughts?
Yeah, basically what everybody's just said. Keep looking at the cards, just spend time with them, and pick a card and see, what's the first thing you feel towards the card with the image that's before you. What feeling do you get? And quite often you can get a different feeling with the same card depending on the time or the question that you're asking. And also just look, and what's the first thing in the card's image that draws your attention? Because that can be different as well on different occasions. You might focus on, if it's a sword, you might focus on the way that the sword is, or you may focus on when the person's sitting or riding a horse or whatever, or another detail like a tree or a castle in the background. Something
Bird
like that
on her shoulder.
Yeah, that will catch your eye. That's so even with the same card, you can get a different reaction intuitively depending on the context that you're actually using the card for at the time.
For sure. I can't. How many times? Well, I know you guys don't watch me read for people a whole lot, but a whole bunch in readings. I do it though on Tarot Tuesdays too. That all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that. We'll talk about a piece of the card, and I'm like, I never noticed that before. I mean, how long have I been doing tarot now? I never noticed that little piece up there or that sailboat in the corner or whatever. Jen, what am I eating? Hi, Kay. I am eating a candy cane. It's a birthday cake candy cane. No idea. And I have to say too, definitely find a deck that you connect with. I hate to say this. My intuition wants to say find a deck that you connect with. It doesn't matter what system it is, but I have found over and over that beginners, and I know I found this too, you really have to start with a system, pick a system, and try to stay within that system. Whatever that may be, if you want to go with Marseille first, stick with that system. If you want to go with RWS, Rider-Waite, stick with that system. Thoth, stick with that system. And stay within that. And then, aesthetically go to one that you look at it and go, oh, this speaks to me. And then work the cards. Pull cards all the time. When you're first learning, the more cards you pull a day, the better. And I used to say all the time, read to your cats, read to your, just keep pulling them and read out loud. It gives you the.
That's actually why I did the daily tarot series on my who draw series on my channel. But it was making myself sit down, pull a card every day. Okay, what's this card mean to me today?
Exactly. And read out loud. I can't tell you how many times I have been teaching someone and they are like, yes, I feel really confident. And the first time they go to a reading, they're like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I knew what it meant because I'd been looking at it and thinking about the card a lot for a long time. But you get in front of somebody else and you're like, it's that, that thing that we normally think. You don't know the card. Okay. So out loud. That's why I say, like, to your cats, to your animals, to your husband, to your best friend, to your sister, to your mother, whatever.
Your mirror, your phone.
Like my mother, that would be all right. Out loud. Definitely.
It's also interesting because in the very beginning, when I was first starting, I made that huge mistake of trying to learn all different types of divination forms. Like, I was trying to do bone casting, I was trying to do Lenormand, I was trying to do tarot all at the same time. It got super overwhelming. But it's interesting because when you look at the different forms of divination, for me, I found that actually Lenormand was the easiest way for me to tap into intuition, because I was able to then look at the simplest form of a card, note that, okay, for example, one card's a clover. And I was like, okay, clover, think of luck and whatever. And then I was like, okay, the key is to not overthink, because when you go to the tarot deck, you see this one image and there's a lot going on and you get easily overwhelmed and you're trying to think of like, okay, what does this card mean? You forget that it's like, okay, let's go back to the basics of, okay, this is what I see. And it's kind of like half common sense. This is what a card would kind of normally mean. But then at the same time, it can be very overwhelming because there's a lot going on in one card.
That's true. And I've heard that before. I do not, like, I have a couple Lenormand decks and I don't read Lenormand. I know what all the basics are, but I've never taken the time to learn Lenormand because I know part of it is like how the cards interact with each other. And I'm always like, I don't want to learn a whole new system. Even me, I'm not ready to go to a whole new system yet.
Well,
I love my RWS. I work a little bit with the Thoth. I play with the Marseille decks. That's enough for now.
I'm strictly the Rider-Waite. I mean, that's just what I have been reading with. And I've had no desire to branch off, to be honest.
Right. I know. I wish I had more time because I would love to. I've been saying for 2 years now that I'm going to learn Marseille. It just hasn't happened. I just haven't had the time.
Yeah. And hey,
But
I keep saying I'm going to learn to read runes.
Right?
Yeah,
I know. Runes. I know.
runes are-
Okay.
I'm
runes
going
are-
to pop back in. Phone's dying.
Okay. No problem, honey. So I'm wondering if we should go to some of the questions in the chat first and then go back to our
yeah.
written questions. Because I know I think we lose some of the chat, don't we? Or maybe we don't. Maybe that's just me thinking we do.
No, I think some of it might roll off. I don't know how far back you go.
Yeah, that's what I thought that it would go. Because, yep, trying to see it, Jen. Got your glasses on your head. Okay. Let me go all the way down to the bottom and then go back a little bit because, Marge, I'm not ignoring your questions, but I just want to make sure. I'm assuming, Marge, that you have your questions written down. So hopefully you can re-ask them if they roll off. All right. Sonia said, how can you wear a witch shirt where you work? Oh, I saw your last video. Do you just tell people? Yes, I just tell people. Everyone at my work knows that I'm a witch. I don't ever, like today was the only day I think I've ever worn anything that says I'm a witch. Does this actually say, oh, soul of a witch? So yeah, I guess so. Today was the only day that I would never do it like on a regular day, but because it was not really a holiday, but kind of a pseudo holiday, I put my jacket on over it and I zipped it when I was doing patients. I wouldn't, but that doesn't have anything to do with my coworkers. That's just because, the professionalism in the office, I wouldn't do that. But all of my coworkers and the bosses and everything, they all know that I'm a witch. And I don't have any problems with it other than I have to be careful now with patient stuff. I got a phone call last week or the week before or something. I'm not allowed to have my scullies out on my machine anymore. I have to put them in the back because a patient said that it made them uncomfortable.
How does that make you uncomfortable?
And
people think death.
I was kind of annoyed because I said, hold on, now I'm going to spit on everyone. Because I said to my boss, if she had said to me, they make me uncomfortable, I would have put them back in my bag or explained to her what they were. So maybe she didn't feel uncomfortable that they were for healing. But no, of course not. But yeah, I just tell people I don't have any issues. Now I do realize that I'm in the Northeast, which means I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing that than I would other places. But I also lived in North Carolina and I shared it there too.
Yeah.
And I had people that, kind of were leery about it until they talked to me about it. But because you guys know me, because I'm an open person, I'm like, go ahead and ask me whatever you want. It doesn't bother me. This is who I am and whatever. And I haven't had too many problems with it other than like neighbors and stuff who would call the cops and say I was a Yankee witch. But
yeah, I wear my gems to work. And I found that it became a discussion piece. And I met 3 other witches that work at my work. So we're out there in force.
And a lot more than we think.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing exponentially. And again, we haven't talked about a whole lot this year, but I want to start because the census, this is a census year. And anybody out there who is at all comfortable with sharing that on the census that you are a pagan, I know I would be very appreciative because I would like to see as close to what the number actually is, which is still going to be a lot less, as we can. And it's supposed to be totally anonymous. Now, I know with the administration that we have, you might not feel totally comfortable thinking that that's going to stay anonymous.
With this administration.
But really, what are they going to, even then, what are they going to do?
Right.
Well, there's nothing they can do, really. Well, what can they do?
Not with that. I mean, if you're an illegal, don't share that. Let me tell you right off the bat, I don't think I would share that I was an illegal with this administration. I wouldn't trust that. But with paganism and stuff, I don't think he can do much.
Nah, he's not going to touch pagans. Not unless he wants to have a whole argument on his hands.
Yeah.
And I do mean, we're not alone, by the way. Please understand, pagans are never alone in a fight for religious freedom, because literally all we have to do is turn and go, hey, agnostics, atheists, it's anybody who's not a Christian, and they're coming for you next.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Sonia, I certainly understand feeling like you can't come out. I'm sorry to interrupt again.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
But Sonia said I have a lot of Catholic friends and they associate it all with Satan. That's too bad, because really in this day and age, that's so close-minded. That means they're not looking around at all. I had, when I first came out, which I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the broom closet, but I had people look at me funny, and I literally would say to them, so I can see on your face that you have questions. I don't mind answering any questions you have. I would rather you ask me and let's get it out in the open, because I know the first thing people think of is, I'm sacrificing cats. I'm worshiping the devil. I'm blah, blah, blah. That's really not what it's about. And this is what I believe.
Yeah.
If you have any other questions?
I had a conversation at work, and now most people in my work are like middle-aged Portuguese women. So they're Catholic, as Catholic can be. And anyone who knows me and who's watched my channel or Klaus Pat's now, I'm Christo-pagan. So I am Christian. Not Catholic, not hardline Christian. I'm United UCC, very liberal Christian. As a matter of fact, UCC pioneered gays' rights from the church standpoint. That being said, I told this lady, I'm pagan. Well, what is it? It's not worshiping the devil. For me, because I am Italian, I am of Roman descent. Well, actually, Napolitan, but still part of the Roman Empire. I also worship Zeus, Apollo, Artemis, alongside God and Jesus Christ and all of the saints. I personally, and this is just the way I've reconciled in my own mind, I personally think Zeus and the Christian God are one and the same, the king of the gods. That's how I put it in my mind, and Jesus and Apollo, and these are all other gods that fall under, the hierarchy, if you would. That's just, and it made for a really good conversation. And the best thing is, like Jen says, be open about, if you're going to be out of the broom closet and you're at work and these opportunities present themselves, be open that discussion, find the common ground.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of Christians. I live in the South. I'm surrounded by Baptists mostly. Guess what? They go, oh, what's that around your neck? And I go, oh, it's a hammer of Thor. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm pagan. Okay. And then we have a conversation, and I make it very clear. Hey, you want to ask questions? Ask. I'm not upset. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Ask what you want to know. Well, do you worship the devil? No, I literally don't believe your devil exists. Oh, well, what do you do? And then you can go into what you believe, or you can go into a loose definition of paganism, or of whatever path you're following.
Exactly.
It is very wrong. Not every pagan believes in the same deities. It's
for sure.
Right, which is why a lot of the time, if they go, well, what's a pagan? Well, it's just an umbrella term. It means I don't believe in the one monotheistic God, that I follow the old gods.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? And then you can launch into who again finish off with, oh, well, I follow the Norse pantheon. That's where I am wearing Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Or I follow the Greek pantheon or the Roman pantheon, and it's the gods that came before Christianity in Islam and Judaism. Oh, okay. And you would be amazed how quickly you watch this judgmental fear in these Baptist Christians' eyes disappear when they realize I'm not some sacrificing cats or babies. I'm not going to hurt you. That pentagram you see around my neck, on my shoulder, isn't that I'm going to hell or that I'm going to send you to hell.
Yeah, well, that's the important thing about the pentagram, because I've noticed, and I pointed this out.
One second. Hi, Hecsen. I just wanted to say
hi, Hecsen.
Sorry.
So the pentagram that is used to represent the devil is upside down. A lot of people don't notice that. The pagan pentagram has the point on top. It's a different symbol.
Yeah.
There's also a version that doesn't have a circle around it.
You know what's funny in like Gardnerian witchcraft, you have like I think it's the second degree. Is it the second degree that they do still use the inverted pentagram?
Mm-hmm.
It represents the like first degree. I think it's like the regular pentagram, second degree inverted, and I think the third degree is like a pentagram and a triangle above it or something like that. I've seen that.
Right, and Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn also uses the inverted pentagram, and in that version, and it's simply the difference between invoking and
Evoking.
And evoking. So literally pulling something in and sending something out.
Exactly. Yep.
I'll
tell you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I am out at my work, which is actually kind of funny because my employer actually found out through creeping on the wrong Instagram by accident. And during my interview, she goes, "Okay, so what's with this whole voodoo business?" I was just like, "Oh Lord, this is awkward." She's like, "Yes, you gave me your Instagram, but it popped up as your other one that had all the voodoo stuff on it." It was actually kind of interesting because she was super laid back. She was really interested to know more about it. And now it's gotten to the point where after I think the third day, I put one little thing of sage out just to see what she would say. And then each day I was like putting out a little more things here and there. She hasn't said anything. And now she asks questions about crystals every other day. She's like, "Oh, are we in retrograde?" I'm like, "No, we're not in retrograde." And then yes, we're in retrograde. It's so much fun now.
But like my coworkers went, "Oh, you like pentagrams and pentacles and stars and moons," and they actually learned the symbols of that I use in my practice and actually will bring me things. Things that they find in the donations at Goodwill and be like, "Melissa, look, look, Leah, look." That's how I get half my crystals, actually.
What I find the most, and I have to say, the most people, when people are worried about coming out of the closet, most people who do that come back to me and say, "I was really surprised at how many people were okay with it. And how many people were curious and started asking me for tarot readings, and how many people line up." Because for me, my biggest thing wherever I work is every time I go to a new office, they're like, "Hey, did you bring your cards? Can we do a reading today?" Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
we can do
that at work too.
Mine do it too. They're like, "Oh, read for me.
I actually read from my coworkers, and I actually found out that my boss's sister is learning tarot. So she was like, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah, I have people at work learning tarot that'll do spreads and text me pictures of them, and like, "I got this spread. What do you see?"
Absolutely.
Like, again, I work with a bunch of Christian Baptist Southerners, okay? And they're over here, "Read tarot for me. Tell me more. I will." Her like, "What's your YouTube channel? I want to subscribe to you."
Lea lynn, just question for demographics. Now, where you work, is it a lot of younger people, or do you have older people as well?
We have both.
Really?
We have everything from like 17, 18-year-old who just graduated high school to who the oldest one is now 77.
Wow.
Well,
Well,
Yeah. And when I lived in North Carolina, same thing. I had younger people working with me. I had older people. That's one thing I was going to say is when I was in North Carolina, I was faced with the same thing. A lot of Baptists. One of my best friends from down there, Tammy, is a very evangelical Southern Baptist, all the way, and prays for me all the time. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't mind. Go right ahead. You can pray for me however you want. But it's totally like, you know what? You're you. I love you for you. You're a caring person. You care about everybody. How am I going to tell you what you should believe? You don't tell me what to believe. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
And that's literally the line, is that my coworkers understand, and that no amount of coming to me and saying Jesus loves you is going to make me go back to being a Christian. And I don't go to them and be like, you need to come over here and be a pagan.
Just like with
so
the
long
Merry
as both of us
Christmas
are willing
thing.
to respect the other one's beliefs, there shouldn't be a problem.
Just like with the Merry Christmas thing, it drives me nuts when they talk about that. Oh, they're taking away Merry Christmas. You know what? I'm sorry, but no one in the world, if you do, you're a complete douche. No one in the world, if you say to them Merry Christmas, is going to say, fuck you, I am not a Christian.
I'm going to be honest. Me, in my experience with retail, in all the years that I've been doing retail, I learned how to say Happy Holidays. Why? I don't say Merry Christmas unless it's Christmas Day, but, to whoever I know. But other than that, it's Happy Holidays to customers and stuff like that, because there's so many holidays other than Christmas that are being celebrated. You have Kwanzaa, you have, different types of holidays are celebrated around this time that it's not just Christmas.
Well, that's why I say Merry Christmas, Hana Kwanzaa, Yulmas.
That's too complicated for me.
And see, I simply say Happy Holidays is as well. In 3 years of retail experience, okay, I've never had a person tell me I'm not, get offended by me saying Merry Christmas. I have had people say they get offended because I said to someone who was wearing a very obvious symbol of their religion, their holiday, and get offended because I said it's something other than their holiday. That I have had happen.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, it's Christmas. Well, honey, they're wearing a very clear symbol that they're Jewish. I'm going to say Happy Hanukkah. Bite me.
Right.
Oh, yes. That's why really, I do in seriousness, we'll say Happy Holidays.
It's more respectful,
Yeah.
I think retail, anything, healthcare, I do the same thing for the most part. I'll say Happy Holidays. If somebody says to me Merry Christmas, I'll say Merry Christmas back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kills me when people take offense to anything. Happy Hanukkah, give me a break. They're not saying screw you. They're saying, many blessings in whatever they believe. I can totally say that back.
I would have been like, well, is F you better?
Yeah, I know, right?
I've also had people get offended because another pagan saw me wearing a pagan symbol like my hammer or my pentacle and went, Happy Yule. And guess what? They go, ah! Because it's not Christmas. And I'm going, get over it.
Ridiculous.
You're both pagan. We're not talking to you. Mind your own business, baby.
Now, I don't even remember what the question was, but I think all right. Let me say before we go on, is there anyone that wants to come on and ask a question? Like come on live and ask a question, because I can post the link in here and you can ask your question live if you want to. Don't forget. If you want to do that, I would appreciate if you put your say like, yes, I would like the link or something in all caps so I noticed it. That way I don't miss it.
Especially since so many of your admins are currently on the screen.
Right? Exactly.
We can't do anything.
Exactly. We got a couple. I see Pat is in the chat too. So Um,
Hi,
Hi.
trying to wish each other well, and some people get all mad. I know exactly. Can people come on just say Happy New Year? I suppose, Marge, as long as I don't want 20 minutes of that, though, because we want to ask questions and answer questions.
Right. This is supposed to be learning.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next question. What is the difference between the magician and the high priestess? I'm struggling with these two. This was from Delia Gillespie.
That's a very interesting question.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna put my input of it, like in my. I'm gonna give you my opinion. To me, the magician and the high priestess are almost equivalent to each other.
They're similar.
They're opposite, like male and female, yin and yang. You know, and to me, they're almost like a mirror of each other, just like man and woman type. You know, or they're almost like a mirrored opposite of each other. So to me, in my head, they're equivalent. They're almost like they represent the same thing, just like kind of like
they both represent creation. The magician is more magical creation, intuitive creation, spiritual creation, whereas the high priestess is more of a maternal, physical creation, but also in the feminine sense.
See, actually, for me, they're reversed.
I was just going to say,
high priestess is all about intuition, her work, her going in, and the magician is flashy. He's usually depicted with one hand up, one hand down, calling the elements. This is his magic out for everyone to see.
He's very controversial compared to the priestess.
He's confident and he's proud and he can do this. The high priestess is pretty stoic. She's sitting back. Her eyes are even sometimes depicted as being, in one of my decks, literally her eyes are depicted as being closed. She's not looking at the outside world. She's looking inside.
Yeah. Yep. And the magician, to me, I always think of the magician, that as above, so below, to me, is all about being able to pull the things that you need for your spell work, for your spiritual practice, for whatever, being able to pull from that higher realm and use that energy here on Earth.
Yeah.
It's all about like having the knowledge and the capability and the tools in order to pull what you need down here on Earth and use it right here.
Right, but and also he's always depicted with his tools of his trade, right? The four suits, the wand, the sword, the pinnacle, the cups.
I'll be right back.
These are his physical tools in the real world. He's usually depicted holding these tools or interacting with these tools in some way. This is outward facing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's interesting because the magician for me is about having that limitless potential to draw upon to then turn it and manifest it to create. Whereas
made me do it.
The high priestess is more about, as you said, Lea Lynn, the internal sacred knowledge that she possesses.
This is one of my new favorite magicians from the Golden Wheel Tarot, because the way he's depicted, he has the chalice and the smoke is coming up, and he has both of his arms up, and he's like conjuring up a storm around him, like. He's extravagant. He wants to show his power and people to look at him and know who he is. And for me, the high priestess is more of like she's not cocky, but she knows her place, you know, to where she's like, oh, I'm just, you know, you are the peasants and I am the queen.
But yes,
but in a very respectful and kept together way.
He's this outward. knowledge, right? This outward presentation of the craft.
Yeah.
So what happens when you first get into the craft? When you first get into witchcraft and paganism,
The
or
drama.
Wicca or whatever, you start
drama
learning
of it.
about the tools. You start wanting to know what's a chalice, what's a wand, what's a sword, what do they mean? And then you start having that answer thrown at you, that I threw at you earlier about the intuition in question, and that you have to meditate, you have to get in touch with yourself, you have to go in and do the work inside. That's the high priestess. That's the next step in the journey. The fool's journey is the major arcana, and if you fall, and so you run into the magician, you run into the high priestess. What's next? Because once you've started playing with these tools, now you need to find the power to use them.
So I'm going to lie too far. Where are we? So if you look at the magician
That's such a cool deck.
they are both manifesting energy, but in different ways. He's sending it outward, whereas she's keeping it close by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had it backwards because I think I've been drinking, but
Or smoking or both.
Not just you, Dave. It's not just you,
So-
Dave.
So yes, the magician is harnessing energy and he is outward, and he is casting. Now
I love that freaking deck.
Now what I mean by physical is she is, it is more intuition, more like divination. When I see this card, right, she's reading tarot, which is more real world than having casting magic and stuff like that. But it's a very intuition, very both spiritual, but the high priestess is much more using intuition, divination, much more of that self-reflection magic, whereas the magician is more of like calling on the elements in a creation style of magic. That makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Mine is, so here is the magician. And again, pulling what he needs from above and using it here on earth. Having that wherewithal to have the tools that he needs to do that. And then the high priestess in this deck is sitting back. Hood is almost over her eyes completely. She has the self-confidence and the inner connection, the connection within herself to trust that whatever she needs will come to her. Like, I'm here and I got it and I know I got it. So come on over and I can tell you the answers. But it's very different. And for sure.
That's the Mama, I'm sorry. That was that the carnival at the end of the world? No, that's
Pagan of the world.
Okay.
What about you, Stephen? What does the high priestess and magician mean to you?
Well, I'm going to say something a bit controversial. Yes.
No, Stephen.
Well, I think that in the tarot deck, the high priestess and the magician are the wrong way round. Because I think the high priestess should come before the magician. And the reason I say that is because the high priestess is, as quite rightly been already stated, the looking within, going and it's getting in touch with your, the magic is within, and it's getting in touch with yourself. It's that inner reflection and transformation, connecting with your spiritual self. It's the learning about the spiritual principles. Then you can in the form of the magician, manifest that externally in the world around you by connecting with spirit and bringing it down from above so below, and using the tools that you've learned how to use on reflection for yourself as the high priestess. You then move into the magician and begin to actually actively use that and then manifest what you want to create in the world around you. And I think that's why I think that, to me, the high priestess leads into the magician rather than the other way around. But
that makes total sense.
It does.
Yep.
It's a lot
It
more.
does because we should look before trying to branch out and go crazy. Like
Here's the
first.
thing. That's not the way. That may be the way you should do
But
it.
that's
It's not necessarily the way you
I
do it.
teach in the real.
It's not necessarily
have
the way
to-
people get into this.
Yeah, and I had to say, I think that had to do a lot with old Arthur too, and how he at the time felt that the magician should be first, and then followed by the high priestess.
Yeah, he
Who created the order of the major arcana?
That would be old Arthur there. A.E. Waite.
Yep.
He created.
That would be Arthur Waite, and like many of the people who created a lot of the systems we use in modern paganism, he had some problematic opinions that we don't like anymore. They're outdated, and we can get rid of them.
Not at all like my favorite Gerald Gardner, the perv.
Yeah. Gardner, Crowley, insert name.
I am a fan of Crowley. I am a fan of Crowley.
The other way of looking at it is that although we have the major arcana, etc., in a sequential order, we don't necessarily go from one to the other in order. We switch between each one, and actually we can be all of them at different
At one
times.
Yep.
Yeah, they're just different facets of the same thing, and we're just looking at that particular facet at that moment. So to say that one necessarily leads in a linear way from one to another is one way of looking at it, but we can be both the high priestess and magician at the same time, because as we try, a lot of us can be impatient and want to get creating and get doing magic, and we'll try and we'll do different things, and we'll think, well, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? And that forces you then to do the inner work, the learning, to do it better as well. So it does
Back
work
and
that
start
way.
the cycle again.
And you start the cycle again.
And there's a reason the fool isn't 1, he's 0. You're going to end up at the fool again at the end of the journey anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So wait, quick question, because I never really quite understood, why does the fool become the fool again at the very end?
Because it's a cycle. Oh, it's a
And
circle.
because whatever you learn, you got to the end of that fool's journey, and that fool's journey was for a particular subject or a particular area of life. Get to the end of that, and guess what? Now you have something totally different to learn. You start over.
Actually, a lot like the fool's journey in writing. Because author over here, when I'm writing a story and I'm using the fool's journey or the hero's journey as my model, just because as my hero or my fool reaches the end of their journey at the end of the novel doesn't mean that their life is over. In fact, if I write a sequel, now they are yet again starting at the fool, the 0, and they have to go through the journey again.
Right.
This time learning a different lesson.
Yeah, because
many times, not even getting to the end of that fool's journey. I don't know how many times I've been kicked off the whole path and, go back to start again because you obviously
And
missed
also
something.
remember that in the middle of your journey through the major arcana, you run into cards like the Tower, Death, that literally knock you down, where you feel like you have gone past to the point where you were as the fool, where you knew nothing and you were stepping off into this unknown. You may feel like you've fallen all the way past to that, to the very rock bottom. That's what those cards mean.
Yeah, but I don't know. I disagree with that. I don't see those cards as that. The Tower can also mean stay standing. Death, or in my deck, I don't have a death card. I have transfiguration. And that's the literal meaning of the death card. It's the end of something and something being reborn. It's changing into the next phase. It's not.
Oh boy, can I not relate to death in the end of this year and the beginning
But
of
sometimes that transformation starts with you feeling low. You feeling like you've lost everything.
And,
and then you have to grow from there.
But it could be the other way around too. So be careful of that, because I've seen that too. You go from a real great thing and you transform into, you know, a little bit of financial struggle or, you know, something else. It goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that can be something that can be two-sided for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Damn it. I lost it now. I went all the way back someplace. Oh, okay. Honey Outlet said, question. When you read, do you call on your guides, the deities, and or the universe? Do you ground beforehand? I'm going to answer first because I've talked about it probably the most. Most people know that when I read, I connect to the web of connection that I think we all have together. Follow that web of connection back to you, back to your spirit guides, the place where your spirit guides reside. Knock on the door and have them open up the door for me, and I connect that way. And I ground with obsidian usually in between readings if I'm doing more than one. And I always have my blue fluorite. Some form of blue fluorite for me because it helps.
Blue fluorite is very blue. That's beautiful.
I love
That piece is very beautiful. It's very blue.
I got that at Tarot Stock
Ooh.
at the gem show.
The dark is that tourmaline or is that hematite?
No, that's fluorite, blue fluorite.
No, the black in between, that shimmery, the druzy.
Oh, it is. It's just it's a matrix, so it could be a several different things. It's not. I'll tell you, it's not black tourmaline. It could be hematite. It could be just like dolomite.
Okay.
So, how about the rest of you? How, when you read for people, do you connect to them, or their guides, or?
I don't connect to any deities. I do ground. I'm almost always got at least a piece of tiger's eye on me. I do tend to meditate and ground and shield myself first beforehand. If I'm doing, you know, like when I do Wednesday night reads, I'll meditate beforehand and I'll have a tiger's eye on. But energy-wise, similar, I try to tap into the energy of the person I'm reading from and the energy of the cards. I believe that the cards themselves have their own energy as if they're a living, breathing thing that I'm not reading. I'm shuffling and manipulating the cards, but the cards are telling the story. I'm just interpreting what the cards, and I refer to the cards in like this weird third person because I believe they have their own energy, their own life.
They are a thing of their own. They are a thing of their own where even if you're shuffling them, you have no control over what card is going to flip.
Say what they're going to say.
I'm actually the complete opposite. I don't connect to anything. I don't call on spirits or guides or gods. And I don't read necessarily as though the cards are speaking to me as a separate entity. I literally read what the card that I read from the card, whether that be something that I'm intuitively drawn to in the card, in the art of the card, or something I know about, you've connected to about the meaning of the card. It's much more of a analytical, intellectual thing for me than a spiritual thing.
It's almost like a conversation. Like if you're having
like
a
what?
conversation.
I missed it.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. Tad background noise, but go ahead.
Oh, is everything okay now?
Yeah.
I said it's almost like having a conversation.
Oh.
Like the cards and you are having a conversation. Regardless if you're reading for somebody, you know, you're having a conversation with the cards. And for me, I don't tap into a deity or ancestors either. I usually do that with my bone readings. Because my bone readings are more of like super deeply rooted in very personal, very, very personal. Even though tarot can be very personal. I'm not saying that. But usually what I do when I'm about to read tarot is, in my mind, clear the space that I'm in. or kind of like a saging, but in my mind, in a way where I cleanse the space that I'm in, and I tap into the person who I'm reading for. I tap into their energy, their desires, what's on their mind. Sometimes I even tell them, either you can clear your mind, you can ask a specific question if you want, but I don't recommend it, because for me, in my personal experience, I like the tarot to tell me what it needs to tell me other than what I want to know.
Yeah, well, it is a conversation, but that's where what I mean by the cards are almost their own entity. The cards are talking to me as I'm reading them. And it's telling me the story through the hieroglyphic that it creates. And that's kind of like how I view a whole, especially when I do Celtic spreads. That's a whole hieroglyphic. It's telling a whole story, but it's the card that I have no control over what card's going to go down there. It's all up to the cards.
True. Stephen, do you connect to a spiritual anything, or just to the cards themselves, or?
Well, I just tend to I do meditate before I'm going to do a reading. I try and just connect to general, the universal spiritual energy that's there. That can include my spiritual guides. Just connecting and trying to open up to intuition. And when I using the cards, I will see the cards as signposts that help to guide my intuition in the context of the question being asked, or the general reading of the situation. So I see the cards more as like a signposts along the journey that I'm going to go into the situation that's being put into question. I see it more as a journey. I very much view the spiritual experience as a journey. Each experience is a journey when you go from this step to this step, and I like to progress through, and each card then is a different signpost.
I get that definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Jem, what do you connect to? Mine is always the same. Well, I don't know, always the same. I'm trying to remember if it's always been like that. I don't really. Squirrel, I think. It's truly, I connect with the web of connection that I talk about. I follow that web to where you are, where your personal nematon is, your spiritual place. And there's always a door. So I am knocking on the door, and whoever opens it is like the bouncer of your spiritual realm, and either will let me in then, and I can see the guides that you have there, and then I start the reading. Or sometimes I don't get let in, and I only get to see the bouncer at the door. It's, it depends on how protective your spiritual doorman is.
You can only go as far as their guides allow you to.
Yeah.
And some of us have very protective bouncers.
Absolutely.
They are your wall. They're your wall of protection. In spiritualism, or I don't know. Quote me if I'm wrong, Lucian. If I don't know if in voodoo they have this, but it's called your spiritual quadrant, and it's literally like a square, right? And they say quadrant because you have four main. It's like your spiritual nexus. Your soul is in the middle, and then you have this quadrant around you, like a frame, like a picture frame. And you are the picture, and you are inside a frame. So this spiritual quadrant is your spirit guides, right? And in this spiritual quadrant can consist of many different spirit guides. Like, for example, in my spiritual quadrant, I have native Caribbean, because I'm from the Caribbean, not Native American, but I have Native Caribbean. I have African ancestors. I also have Spanish ancestors from when the Spanish came over to the Caribbean and stuff like that. And so this quadrant, the spiritual quadrant, is specific to who you are. For example, if you have Viking descendant, you might have Vikings in your quadrant. You know, it all depends. And then these are things that come with from before you were born. It's something that is part of your blood. Your ancestors come from the beginning of your personal history.
And past lives too. I found definitely past lives come into that too.
Oh yeah, they have a lot to do with it.
Hold on.
Yes.
And also, everyone has different ideas of what a spiritual guide is. So, who to some of us, it's the ancestors. To some of us, it's literal spirits. It's that we don't know where they're from, or that we do sort of think we know where they're from. I've mentioned before that I work with demons, and one of my guides is one. And yes, he's pretty much the bouncer of the group. And and yes, I know Mama has done a reading for me. He had run into him before.
Several times, yes. I did get let through once, I think, that I kind of got a little peek around, but
yeah, I think he let you in one time.
I'm even the opposite of that. I don't exist in one quadrant. As a wizard, I believe in this thing called the multiverse, and that's, you know, it's like a web of energy, but it transcends time. When I've astro traveled, I've gone back in time and I've gone forward in time, because I believe it's all like this huge web that extends, you know, front to back in time, and even side to side in like parallel universes or universes of energy of sorts.
Don't think of it though. Don't think of your spiritual quadrant, Dave, as a barrier, because it's not a barrier. Your spiritual quadrant is more of your protection. That's really in my
pillars,
practice.
like the four pillars.
The four pillars, exactly, of your personal temple.
Yeah, but see, that'll
Holds you together.
No,
And
I
it
get that.
consists of anything, deities, spiritual guides, ancestors. You know, it could be.
Yeah, but
It could be so much, you know, and it could be personal to you. I cannot tell you it has to be this or it has to be that, because it really is different for every single individual.
yeah, I know, I get that, but that protection, that barrier, see, that's where I get through grounding and centering myself, and it's me. And yes, maybe sometimes I will bring a deity with me. But what I'm saying, it's not always the same. I mean, there are times where I'm tapping into the Christian side of my faith, and there's times when, you know, all last summer I worked with Apollo. So in that personal bubble, for me, it's not a pillar; it's like this bubble around me. And yeah, Apollo was in that bubble with me through the summer. So yeah, I
You feel it's like a dome, kind of like with the Simpsons and everything.
This is a dome.
Okay, hold on. I had another question that I was going to ask.
Oh, wait, before you do, I just quickly get this in because I haven't been able to. So I want to go back to Hecsen with the 4 quadrant thing. Actually, in Voodoo, it's very interesting because it's called the quincux pattern, where it's also called the 5-point method, where it's the 4 points and then a central focal point that we use in magic, where, for example, if you're casting something in the house, to protect it, you would place something in all 4 corners of the house and something in the center.
Well, that's interesting.
And then it's also interesting because with my readings, I kind of do like a blend between Lea Lynn and Dave, where Mom Squirrel taught me this, because in the beginning, when I was doing readings, remember Mom Squirrel, I kept telling you, oh my God, I feel so like drained at the end. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, you know what? You told me about tapping into the energy of the earth to kind of use that as that continuous flow of energy where I don't feel drained. So I will obviously have my black tourmaline for grounding, and I'll have my Gaia Scully to tap into the energy of the earth because within that, I'm able to then tap into the energy of the ancestors to then use them to help kind of use me as a conduit for my readings, because with the ancestors, they see everything. So it's like they're able to channel me in my readings.
Perfect.
That's
Absolutely.
That is so awesome.
And that's something that's hard to learn. And it's funny, before I learned tarot, I learned that with healing. That after a while, when you're healing people, if you're using your own energy to heal people, it doesn't take long. You are wiped out. You cannot use your own stuff and give that away to everybody when you're healing. And same thing with tapping into energies that, you're reading for people and stuff. If you're using your own stuff, you're not going to last long.
You tire
And
very.
see, it's actually funny because to me, when I was first starting to practice this path, it was actually one of the first things I learned was how to draw energy from the earth to keep me going when I needed it, and then give it back when I was done, was one of the first practices I really got into. And it wasn't hard for me to learn at all. It was something I just naturally fell into the pattern and never let go of.
Right? Yay. And once you learn that, it changes everything. Then you're like, okay.
I know someone had asked me a question earlier, and I think it was Kay. Hecsen, did you do bone readings before you began to use cards? No. Actually, before I even discovered tarot, when I was like a 13, 12-year-old witch, or I wanted to call myself a witch, even though prior to that, I used to work, because I was brought up Catholic, I used to work with the Virgin Mary a lot. And even I didn't know it back then, but I was worshiping her as a goddess. I would light candles for her and pray for her and things like that. So that was actually one of the first deities I actually worked with, was the Virgin Mary. And I do say deity because to me, she is a deity in her own right.
Sure.
Anyway, so before I started even thinking about bone reading, which I've discovered bone reading probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I've been doing bone readings on and off till probably 2 years ago was when I really got into it. And then before tarot, I used to do runes. I found a team.
Runes. They're hard.
Uh-oh, mama squirrel.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I'm on a big
But
live
actually-
with 6 people live, so just from this a little, please. Thank you.
But actually, hey, Hecsen, you're not alone in actually viewing the Virgin Mary as a goddess. There are actually quite a few people who are sort of Christo-pagan or even just pagan who actually grew up Catholic and view the Virgin Mary as, oh, wait a second, when I was Catholic, I prayed to her, not Jesus. I interacted more with her. I connected more with her than I did with Jesus or God. So
Right?
I'm going to practice with her. Actually, one of the first people I heard about who did that, it was Kellyanne Maddox on YouTube.
Yes,
Yeah, I love her.
It's so funny because there's so many. Like, if you look at the Virgin Mary, there's so many images of her. And she has so many names. Like, there's thousands of Virgin Marys, but it's still one Virgin Mary. Mm-hmm. So it's like, where did that concept come from? And then no matter which concept of the Virgin Mary you look at, she's always displayed with a moon at her feet or on her crown, and she has a crown of stars. So it's like this goddess symbolism. It's in there with the Virgin Mary always. Like it accompanies her.
You know what I find interesting, and you might this is more directed at you, Hecsen, because I know you have a bit of a Catholic background, and it's still prevalent in your faith, just like I, have the Christian side of my paganism. Now, I was also raised Catholic, but I left Catholicism, and the Catholic or the Christian part of me is United Church of Christ. It's more of a congregational. And while we acknowledge the Virgin Mary for who she was, she's a little less saintly in other Christian denominations.
Oh, yeah, in many. in many actually, it's really Catholicism that really almost they have her. Well, even with Jesus himself, like they're like, they put her in this pedestal along with him because they see her as the overall mother of giving birth to us, or
it's it's a very Catholic thing.
I mean, there's even, for example, there's like Jehovah Witness, like they don't believe at all, and they don't even believe in Christ as Savior at all.
Neither do the evangelicals that he was a part of when I was a Christian. Didn't believe in that. In fact, they criticized Catholics for essentially idol worship because he prayed to Mary, and oh, look at them, they're worshiping an idol, and I'm over here going, so are you.
Steven, someone in the chat is asking what stone is in your necklace.
Yes, and
selenite.
I replied that it's selenite.
Oh, you did.
Selenite.
Oh, you did. I just saw that.
Oh, it's pretty. I almost thought it was rose quartz because it has like a little,
like a kind of
sheen to it. I think it's the sheen to it. On my screen, it's reflecting a little bit like pink in hue, which is beautiful. I love it.
That could just be the lighting. But yeah, it's selenite. I used to have a sodalite at one point, and I actually lost that. That went missing somehow. That yeah.
We didn't go missing. Someone took it, Steven.
Get it back.
And then for a time, I used to wear some moonstone, but that's actually on my altar. I've still got that. I know where it is, but that was just for a specific purpose. And I've now gone back to selenite because that's just a general connection to spirit and to and a cleansing and that kind of thing. It helps me connect with various things, particularly when I'm doing readings.
I love selenite. Selenite is really good to connect you to that spiritual higher. That higher, if you want a quick connection to that, selenite is amazing. I mean, and it works for anything.
I see a question here that Pat is asking about that Shauna has asked, how many deities is it okay to work with? And can I just say that's an excellent question, because that's something that's been going on in my mind recently. For most of last year, for me anyway, last year, 2019, you've not yet reached 2020 yet.
Wait, you're in 2020?
Yes,
I'm in the future.
Oh my God, you're in the future.
And
travel.
Yeah, and I mainly worked. My first deity that I worked with, I mean, I came from a Christian background. I was very heavily into the church, then left that for various reasons and got into tarot, and then got into this spiritual community, and then got into Jen's group, and then, well, you know what happens when
you never run away from
Jen's group. Yeah.
You're in it now.
We'll come back.
But
So the first what would be perceived as the first non-Christian deity, and it took me a while, to be honest, to get around to the idea of deities because of my Christian background and the monotheistic God and the particular kind of church that I was in. So going from that to not being connecting to any gods at all, any deities or anything, and coming around to the idea of connecting with deities, that was a journey in itself. My first one was I connected with was Gaia, because that was like connected me to the earth, connected me to the elements around me, and I even had sort of instance with trees and things that I'll go into on another occasion. But and also then a bit later down the line, when I thought, right, I want to bring in a god to go with that. And I actually, because of my love of the ocean, even though I don't actually live near the ocean, but I do connect with the water element, being a Pisces, etc. And I connect spiritually with the ocean. I thought Poseidon was the natural choice, and I've been working with Poseidon alongside Gaia. Now then, how many deities can you work with? And there's a question there about what do you mean by work with, and that was another issue. That, well, what do you mean work with a deity? And I'm still learning that, so I'll be interested to hear some other explanations from you guys. But I believe that I need to add at least another two deities as I go into 2020. Another goddess and another god, and I'm currently working, on connecting with those right ones that are right for me this coming year. And the only issue then is, well, is it okay to work with more than two at once? How many can you work with? How do you work with more than one or more than two, etc.? And of course, as a pagan, you don't actually have to work with a deity as well. I would say it's your choice. It's your personal journey as well. So it's what, as Jen often says, it's what works for you and what's right for you on your path.
If it works, it works.
Hallelujah!
If it works
That's
for
what
you,
I for.
that's what works.
Yeah, if it works
It's
for
as
you,
many
it
gods
works.
or goddesses
It all depends.
as you want.
For me, it all depends on what do you mean by work with, right? Like, for example, you can work with a deity to honor them and worship them, especially if I'm just trying to discover a new deity or beginning to work with a deity. And learning about them and stuff like that. If I find an image that I can associate with that deity, I kind of honor them and worship them a little bit and pray to them and stuff like that. Now, I do work with different saints and deities and stuff like that, but even deities can be seasonal, kind of like when we were talking about the tarot and how Stephen mentioned when things happen to us, they might not go in the order of the major arcana, right? And so you're jumping from one major to the other. And so your time with a deity might not be permanent either. There's deities that come into your life and you discover them for whatever lesson it is that you need to learn from them. And when they help you with that, it's not that they completely go away and you will never work with that deity again, but it's more of like a visit. You received a visit from this deity, right? And they did that internal work with you that you had to do, and so you're able to move on and continue with another deity. So that's how it is for me. I do work with multiple deities. My matron. I say matron because that's my head, my crown, the ruler of my mind, my spirit, is my ocean mother Yemaya. But in Yemaya, the history of Yemaya is she is also that same goddess with 1,000 names. She's Inanna, she's Ishtar, she's Isis. She's all in one. She is Gaia, she is Mother Earth. So in all its right, it's, to me, it's like it doesn't matter what pantheon. I mean, of course you can relate to a pantheon. It just at the same time, don't think about it. Oh, well, let's say if I'm Egyptian, well then I'll look at your goddess different than my goddess, when they're all in one. I mean, like I said earlier, look at all the different versions of the Virgin Mary, and she's still just one Mary. It's one Mary.
Just one.
So
For me,
Sonia
it's interesting.
actually pointed
because-
out. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. For me, it's a tricky question of who you can work with. I mean, the answer is yes, you can work with multiple deities, but at the same time, it's like you also have to be careful with who you work with, because obviously when you want to work with a deity, you have to research about the deity. You want to know their likes, their dislikes, their personality traits, because I've been told that obviously certain deities will work well with other deities. So for example, if I'm working with my ancestors, and then there's Barawan Samedi, who is a Loa of the dead. Other deities out there that are similar of the dead you can work with, but then at the same time, it's like if you're working with Lilith. I know Lilith's personality, she's very independent. She's not exactly a fan of masculine energy. So a lot of the times when I'm working with her, I will make sure I do not have any other masculine deities.
Do not invoke Adam when you're invoking Lilith.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
I
at
would
the same
stray
time,
from that.
you can work with other deities at the same time. You just have to be mindful of their likes, dislikes, and who they are.
And see, you just answered exactly the question I was going to point out, which is the one that's now highlighted on the screen. Yes, there are some deities who aren't going to get along. But, okay, to use a real-world example, if you had two friends who didn't like each other, would you invite them to the same party? No. You'd hang out with them separately. Same thing.
I don't know. See, me, I would invite him to the same party, but if it was a big enough party, I would. But so here's the short answer to this is work with as many deities as you fucking want, because if it works for you, it works.
Yep.
Okay, let's go back to what does work with mean? There's a difference between working with, which to me, the definition I would say of working with a deity is calling upon that deity for help or energy that is specific to that deity. So like my Dana work, when I'm working with Dana healing work, I'm working with Sekhmet specifically now, because her energy and Sekhmet's is very closely tied right now with her healing work. And I know that Sekhmet has stepped forward to say, this is mine. I want this healing. This is what I'm going to be good at. Send me out there. And so I definitely call upon Sekhmet when I am doing healing with Dana, because she takes that energy over. For my justice, anything that I think is unfair, if something's happening to me at work that I'm like, what the fuck is going on? My Mayat has always been there for me. Now, I have a deeper relationship with her, and I would call her one of my main goddesses because she was my first goddess. She was the goddess that I think I probably connected to the deepest. And so that becomes a little bit different. I do have to know her energies enough and have worked with them enough that I know who she works well with. Does that mean I have not screwed up and put somebody that she totally hates on the same altar? Absolutely. And guess what happens? Suddenly I'm like, whoa, what the hell is going on? How come I suddenly can't connect to Mayat? And I feel like she's turning around like, nope, I'll never talk to you again. Then I'm like, okay, hold on, something is not right here.
Yep.
That doesn't mean I never get to work with her again. That means her personality, her energy is saying, woohoo, something's wrong here. What did you do? And I have to figure it out.
I've literally worked with both Thor and Loki at the same time, and they're looking, and literally had to put them on separate altars because Loki and Thor are looking at each other like, I love you, but I hate you. Could you not put me next to him?
A lot of it is just knowing what your need is, right? So, for example, like with me, I do have different deities, but I use them depending on what my purpose is. So, like, for example, if I'm doing healing work, I'll work with Mary Laveau. If I'm working with the ancestors, it's Sam. Money, I'll call upon Papa. So it really just depends on what your need is for at the time.
It also, because I view the deities as a little bit less separate, a little bit more connected to the whole pantheistic viewpoint of I am divine, they are divine, and we're just separate faces of the same divinity. To me, yes, I'm connecting to Bast, and and when I connect to Bast, okay, I'm connecting to that face, that version. But when I need her, she's there. When I need Thor, he's there. When I need Loki, he's there. And it's never And it's for me, it's like I'm turning the dial to the face that I need to interact with right now. Whether I need Loki's trickster loving, let's have some fun with a messy situation, or Thor's hard headed strength, or Bass to build up my confidence again.
Yeah.
And whichever one I need is the one I'm calling on.
Yes. And I will say too, I think that there's something to be said. I say all the time, if it works for you, it works. My relationship to a deity is not going to be the same as your relationship to a deity, as their relationship to a deity. I know I have connected with, Hecate, for example. I work a lot with Hecate. I have a great relationship with Hecate. And I have worked very deeply with her to the point of drawing down and inviting her spirit in. My relationship with Hecate, I know what I'm asking for. I know how deeply she wants to be able to get. I know what I'm expected to, have to do, to be with. Someone else can say, wow, you know what? I tried to work with Hecate and she is a bitch. And I couldn't work with her at all. And that's okay. Now, I'm not going to be able to work with some deities that somebody else works with, because just like crystals, just like anything else, my energy is going to connect and blend with a deity's energy totally different than someone else, which is why I hate, not that I hate, I try not to use that word very much, but I really bothers me when someone says, oh, well, you can't work with this goddess when you're whatever. I love, it drives me nuts with the boys with the voodoo and hoodoo stuff, that is a traditionally hard religion to break into for people who were not raised in that faith, because they are very particular about how things have to go. And this is exactly how you have to work with this. And this, in order to do this, you do this. And to me, that's always been ridiculous. You know what? If it works for you, fine, but you try to push that on everyone else around you, that just doesn't work for everyone. So for anybody out there who is saying, oh, you know what? I've worked with this deity and she doesn't like this. She didn't like that with you. That doesn't mean she won't like that with someone else. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you try to mix something and someone told you that and you're like, ooh, okay, you're right. That did not work. And sometimes it's just fine. So don't make the mistake of limiting your deities or limiting your connection with someone because someone else has said they had a hard time with that, or that energy didn't work right with this.
Also, just to add on, because remember Mama Squirrel at the very beginning when I first joined your group and I wanted to work with Hecate, and I set up an altar and everything, and then I was like, why am I getting nothing? It's like she basically just closed the door on me. So then Jen, you were like, you know what, just give it a little bit more time, be patient, try again a little bit later. I did that. I was patient. I went back, set up another altar, and then started working with her. And then she was like, okay, it's your time. Just because they may not work with you in the beginning, don't give up, because it may not just be your time right then. That doesn't mean completely give up. It just means try it again a little bit later.
Yes. And again, I know for a fact, Hecsen, me, Mama, Lucian have all worked with Hecate at different points. Hecate is my matron. She's my main goddess. My relationship with her looks nothing like Mama's relationship with her, or Hecsen's, or Lucy's.
We've spoken about this. Me and Lea lynn have spoken about this. Oh my God. How many times we've been like sometimes on chat for hours just talking about
the differences between our relationships with the same deity.
And how
sometimes you wonder, like, are we talking to the same God? Is this really this? Yes, it is. Because just like anything else, first of all, my work face, my persona at work is a totally different person. If you saw me at work, you'd be like, who is that person? Jen doesn't talk like that. So when a deity connects with you, they have a persona that they have with you and you alone.
Yep.
It's going to be different for
It's
everyone.
that one-on-one. It's
And
that
each of
one-on-one.
and by the way, you guys get a different version of me on here, and even the admin chat when you guys talk to me in there, even though it's a closed group, you get a different version of me than my coworkers, than my best friend does, than anyone else does, because you get a version of me that is deliberately he designed in a way to interact with you. And that's not because I'm being fake. That's because I'm being me when I interact with you.
Exactly. Exactly. And the last point I'm going to make on this is, again, the working with, there's so many different ways to work with. I have worked with hundreds of deity, because working with can mean I spent an afternoon because I had a spell that I thought, you know what, for some reason, I really feel like this one deity that I've never worked with before wants to lend their energy for this one spell I'm doing. And so I call upon that deity to help infuse this one spell I'm doing, and that's it. Working with can mean a whole bunch of different things. It can mean just calling
Working
upon
with
that.
can mean I spent a week doing meditations with that one deity because I needed to learn something from that one deity, and then they're done with me and they walk away.
Yep,
And that's what
absolutely.
I meant where some deities, they visit you seasonally. You know, they come and go. For example, I don't remember whose YouTube it was that I was watching, and it was probably like a video from a few months ago. And they had erected an altar in the home for Hecate, and she was talking in her life how her working through Hecate was for the protection of her son and things like that, and so she erected this altar for Hecate, and she honors Hecate for protecting her son, correct? But she does not work with, meaning she won't invoke Hecate in a circle. It's more of a respect relationship, and therefore she honors Hecate. But then that's how it gets with her and Hecate. You get what I'm saying? She honors her with whatever she needs to honor her with, but then it's not like, oh, this is my main goddess, or I invoke her and stuff like that. And for me as well, I have different spirit guides and things like that I work with, or some of them I don't work with, and I just honor them.
Absolutely.
But it all comes down to, what do you mean by work with? It's all personal. It's all your personal work, and what do you mean by work with? It's all personal.
Yeah.
And the thing about this path in particular is that, yes, I'm sorry that none of our answers are going to be solid. Here's the answer, the one and only answer, because everything about this path is your path. You're going to have to find the way that you interact with deity. You interact with the divine. You interact with the earth. You interact with your spirituality.
And so let's talk about that, because I've had people say to me, how do I know? I kind of feel like Pan is calling me. Somebody in the group said this week, I had a dream that Pan had come to me in a dream and he wasn't really there. And is he calling out to me and stuff? Well, how do you know that? You know how you know? You have to do the work. You have to set up an altar. You have to, even if you don't let's say you don't set up altars, then the next step is meditate.
See
Take
yourself
some time and visualize that deity. Invite them in to work with you. How do you feel about that? Does that work for you? Do you feel like it, connected at all? Do you feel like as soon as you invited them in, they went, nope, that's not happening? Sometimes that happens. You have to do the work, just like with everything else in this path.
And sometimes you feel like you're connecting with a deity and it's just a little trickle. It's just a little, hey, over here, come on, follow me. follow me. Oh, follow. Come on. I'm trying to get your attention. Come on. And until you pay attention, and they want you to follow them. Oh, and that might mean you need to do some research. Read their. You can read their myths. You can read in the Norse mythology. Read the Eddas. In Greek mythology, read the myths. Roman, read the myths. Egyptian, read their myths. Get to know the personality.
And it's so funny. It's so funny that a lot of them are very similar. Like no matter what ancient culture you're looking at, it's very similar storyline. Just the gods' name change, and but they say they came down from the sky.
And a lot of them are the same sort of energy. So if you connect more with the idea, like I do with the pantheist viewpoint, if you connect more to the idea that like it's a certain kind of energy, okay, maybe you don't know what pantheon you're going for. Maybe all you know you're getting is flashes of skulls and flowers. Okay, well that could be Persephone, Hecate, the Morrigan, and you have no idea where this is coming from. So focus on those deities, the deities that are associated with these things that are coming to you. And then which one pulls your attention? Is Persephone pulling your attention and then you keep going back to her myth? Then research her, meditate with her. For me, the same imagery kept coming to me that came to Lucy about Persephone.
Mm-hmm.
So he was getting skulls and flowers for Persephone. I was getting skulls and flowers for Hecate.
I just want to note because, well, first, Dave, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Dave decided to go make garlic bread. Well, everyone was asking where he went. So, oh my God, hold on. So, because I get a lot of questions on so everyone's asking a lot about how do you know if a deity is calling out to you. For me, it's all about looking at the signs that you see. What's wrong?
Hold on. Come over here.
Okay, hold on. He's coming back. For me, it's interesting because with different deities, I've gotten different signs. When it was with Persephone, it was when we lost Thor, and then I literally was in my car about to give up, threw out my hands and went, just bring Thor back to me, please. And then he just popped out of nowhere. So that was a sign for me. I was like, oh, she wants to work with me. For the ancestors, when I know they're close by, my entire body will just vibrate intense energy. For Met Kalfu, I knew he wanted to work with me because he came to me in a dream that I had. And I was like, that's interesting that all these different deities will reach out to you in different ways. So it's just all about looking at the different signs and knowing, oh, okay, that's the sign that they want to work with me.
And not even knowing, researching. I can't tell you how many times I had ravens and crows show up for me. And before I found Hecate, when I was just working with Maya at the very beginning, and I thought, well, that could be a million different goddesses. I mean, the Morgan comes with ravens. There's a million of them that come with ravens and crows. So you kind of again look it up. What deities have to do with ravens and crows? Because all of a sudden they're showing up for me, and then go from there. And guess what is a great although a huge rabbit hole, but a great source for information is my Pinterest page, guys, because I have done years of research and have tried to break things up into different categories so that if you're looking for gods and goddesses, I have a whole board, gods and goddesses, that is now broken up into Norse, Greek. I tried to start breaking things up into pantheons, and do your research and things will start to show up. Jack said too, I've had a deity show up just to lead me to another one.
Yep, that's what Bass did for me. She showed up, Bass showed up in my life, and literally it was with the understanding, I'm not, because I was looking for my matron, right? Well, Bass shows up. Okay, this is great. No, I'm not your matron. I'm just here for you for a little while. I'm just getting you ready for your matron. Oh, okay. And then she works with me. and we're working together on self-confidence, getting comfortable, getting the connection to my own power that I needed to be able to work with Hecate.
It's interesting because when I first started voodoo, we have the Barons, who are all part of the Loas of the Dead. And for the longest time, I actually thought I was working with Baron Samedi. But then came to research, I realized that there were multiple Barons for different purposes. And with further research, I actually realized after a freaking year that I was working with the wrong one. And that my actual one that was calling out to me was Cimetier. And that's how important research can be, because sometimes you may look at one thing, read a little bit, and realize, oh, okay, it could be this one. But then you research further, and you're like, oh, wait, that's not it. Move over. It's the one over here that I should be working with.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes also, you can end up working with a deity because they're connected to one of your other deities.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, that's actually how I ended up working with Loki, is that he's connected to Thor. It's also how I ended up working with Thor's wife, Sif, because she's connected to Thor. So literally, because I was working with Thor, I ended up connecting off to these other two Norse deities.
In my case, I found Persephone through Hecate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, is that? Remember what were we talking about? Something about Hecate meeting Persephone in the underworld. Is that? Gosh, when did we have that? Was that this Samhain or last?
I'm pretty sure that was
first Samhain together. I think that was a year ago.
That was last Samhain.
I just poured the wine all over
A sign could be from within, like feelings and thinking of something. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden,
if your mind keeps going to something. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Also,
Marge
because I love working with
download anything to go live. You do not. It's just a link.
But because I love working with pop pantheons, and by the way, yes, that whose signs can also be: are you drawn to a certain cartoon character, like maybe Poison Ivy, or Thor, or Catwoman? Research what they are connected to. Who I point those out in particular because I've used Poison Ivy as a symbol for Hecate because she's poisonous, she's deadly, she's associated with plants. Sounds a bit like our lovely goddess who's associated with things like Nightshade and Belladonna, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And anime stuff too. A lot of animes have to do with different goddesses and gods too. So okay. Let's see. I know we've had a million questions, guys. I'm really sorry. All right, let me go back to if there's admins. I think Pat's still there. I'm going to go back to the written questions for now, and then if you guys have more questions, caps for me. Okay. What is there anything you do differently between reading for yourself and reading for others?
Actually, yes, because literally when I'm reading for myself, it's okay, look at the card, drop it, because I know what it's trying to tell me. When I'm reading for someone else, it's a little more in depth because I have to look at this card and be like, okay, how do I communicate this to you in a way that's not going to scare the crap out of you?
Right. There's a huge difference. So for me, obviously, when I pull a card, you're forced to tell the client. But then, of course, as we all know, when reading ourselves, we pick up the card and go, no, I don't like that. Put it back. Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
No. Or that's much better. You get that. Usually I get that means exactly the same damn thing.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I get is I pull the tower and I go, I don't want that card. And then it gives me the 9 of Swords instead. It's like, damn it.
Anybody else, Hecsen? Steven? Reading for others different than reading for yourself?
First of all, I'm going to answer the question that's on there now. What part of England am I from? I'm not. If you know where Simon from the Hermit's Cave is in Nottingham, I'm about 15 miles away from there. So I'm sort of right in the middle of the country of England. Sort of, it's called the East Midlands, so it's like the east side of the middle part, if you like. So you know, some more or less in the centre of the country, and I'm about half an hour's journey away from where Simon lives. So in the city of Nottingham. Because the county that I'm in is Nottinghamshire, and the main city is Nottingham. So, and then there's towns and everything all around that city. So that's where I am. Going to the question of do I read differently? I've only done a few readings for other people. I did a few on my live, and I've done some on another occasion. But yeah, it is very much when you're reading for yourself, you're looking and you more or less know what it means for you, or you might think, well, how am I supposed to deal with that kind of thing, and you're immediately applying it to your life and what it could mean. When you're reading for someone else, you're involving, it's just you and the cards and the spiritual connection between it. When you're reading for someone else, there's a new element there. There's a third element. There's another person that you're connecting to with the cards and the person, and you have to get the intuitive part from what you're seeing in the cards, but also you need to connect that to the person and their situation, and often with little information, because they won't always tell you. They might not know what it means to them, or they might know, but they won't tell you that they know. You know, they'll keep that to themselves. Oh, I don't know what that could mean, but they do. They have a person in their mind. They have a situation in their mind, and you have to know when to just stick with that. The meaning. That's when you need to just, like as Dave says, let the cards speak for themselves and give them that message, and then it's up to the person then to determine whether they connect with it or not. And sometimes you may know that that's right, and sometimes you might not. They might not share that with you, and they may just quietly go away, and you don't know how effective that reading was. But they may just say thank you very much, and you just have to trust that the universe will just take that message and apply it how it means to. And sometimes, like when we see something, and the cards are saying something to us, we don't always listen to it, do we? We don't always listen to it, and then and we may not, the person we're reading for may not always listen to the message, but we've done our part. We've conveyed the message, we've given that message over, and we just need to trust that the universe will deal with it, and then it's up to the person then to do with that message whatever they want to, or just to ignore it, like we sometimes do. Like I felt like doing when I did a reading earlier, and I got something I didn't like. It was for towards 2020, and I just decided that I don't like that. What the hell, the sort of like, particularly what the theme of 2020 is going to be like. What is it doing? Jen's earlier spread. Reading for myself, and the part was, what is the theme of 2020? And I got the 5 of Swords, and I thought, well, I'm just going to hibernate through next year, and I'll see you all in 2021. So...
Bye. I'll be hibernating. I am hiding. I'm moving to Antarctica. See you who next year.
Coming back in 2021. Okay, never mind that year. I love listening to you, because I have to say, you always put it into a perspective that I don't think of, because of course, me being me, when I get a client or a querent that will not, give me information and it's totally closed down, and I'm like, so this is what it's saying, and they're, I always think, you bastard. I always think they're doing this on purpose, and I hate when they do that because then you're trying to like pull the energy out. I never think they're doing what we do and like, nope, that's not about me. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know nothing about. I totally purposely, and they're being bastards.
We need to create a meme that says like, when reading for others, your future's set in stone. When reading for ourselves, lies, pull again.
Lies. You're wrong. You're
Or
wrong.
it could change if you do something different.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, yes, please.
It's hot.
Oh, it's hot. Is it hot?
That's what hot means.
It's hot.
All right. Hecsen, you got anything to add, honey, or are you good?
I'm okay.
He's chilling.
Sorry.
You're better than okay. Okay, I see.
No, I'm not better than okay.
All right.
Sorry.
God damn it. What did I do with my glasses? Ugh. All right.
Considering how many times I've refilled this cup, I'm good.
What are you sipping on?
Oh, you missed the part where I told you what I'm sipping on. Rum.
Oh, whoa.
Okay, so this is one I wanted to answer for sure. Crystal Waters had quite a few questions, but I'm going to read this one first. How long do you give to connect to a deck? If it doesn't happen quickly, do you put the deck up and try later or pass it on? Have you ever read a deck that read well for you and then you lost the connection? So my answer to this is it depends on the deck. First of all, I have decks that I still have to connect with, but I will not give them up because now not all of them are like this. Some of them I just have because I want to collect. I'm also a collector, but some of them I feel like at some point I think I'm going to connect to this deck. It hasn't happened yet. I may have had it for 5 years now and it still hasn't happened, but I feel like it's gonna someday. And that has happened to me several times where I have had a deck for a couple of years and thought I'm never going to connect to this deck, but I feel like I can't give it up yet. And then all of a sudden, like the Wild Unknown this year. Oh my God, I hate the Wild Unknown. I could not stand that stupid deck. Everybody loved that deck. And I was like, I cannot connect to that stupid thing to save my life. And all of a sudden this year, I would pull a card from it and be like, I don't know, do I want to show this for Tarot Tuesday? And then I'm like, oh, that's really good. What is that? How come I didn't see that before? Totally different perspective. I think the more practice you get, the better reader you get to be. All of a sudden, different cards will speak to you at different levels. And just like your experiences in life and everything, all of a sudden, stuff will come to you that didn't come to you when you looked at it the first 8,000 times trying to connect to it. So I don't think there's a time limit, first of all. What do you guys think?
See, for me, I connect to different decks at different points. So sometimes it's the new deck in my collection and I can't put it down because I fell in love with it before I bought it. And sometimes it's because it's just speaking to me in some way. For example, right now, I have the Witches Insurrection Tarot on my altar. Have I read with it at all this week? No. What have I been using to read with this week? The Arcana Tarot. Why? Because it's the one that's connecting to me right now.
Absolutely. Nobody else? Nothing? Oh, quick, move on. Oh, I mean.
Oh, that sounded weird. For me, yeah, same with Lea Lynn. It really depends on like what deck is speaking to me at the moment. Because I've had with certain decks, actually, it's interesting because I've got the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, which I absolutely fell in love with. But obviously, I learned right away it was a different style of deck. So I was like, you know what? I'll put you on hold for now. I'll work with you a little bit later when I have time. I'll work with a different style. And then I got the Ancient Italian Tarot that I got because I was like, oh my God, I connected to the cards I saw. I got it, and then saw it was Marseille. And I was like, oh, I'm not fluent in that. I'll put you away for now. But the most latest deck I got was the This Might Hurt. And I was like, oh my God, I completely connect with it right away. And that's actually the main deck that I'm going to start working with. So I guess it really depends on just what deck is calling out to you. So I have some decks that I bought because I loved them and I haven't really touched them yet. And then I've had others that I've used depending on like the mood I'm in and whether or not they want to work with me.
And like, it might be that tomorrow the Arcana Tarot isn't talking to me anymore. And instead I need to go over to Antique Anatomy because that's the one that's calling my name right now.
That's true.
Oh, I forgot. I also have decks that are seasonal. For example, the Dead Weight I only use during Samhain. Well, we'll start to. And then the Winter Weight, obviously winter, Christmas. So
And spring.
I don't have one.
But like, also, yes, some of my decks I connect to seasonally. Like, come spring, like April, I will probably be using the Mystic Fairy Tarot again because it's the one I always pull out in springtime because it's so bright and so much greenery, and it makes me think of springtime.
I agree. Have you ever had a deck that read well for you and then you lost the connection?
Like I said, yes and no, because some is I literally will be reading with a deck, lose the connection, start reading with a different deck, and then come back to that deck again.
Anybody else? I think I have two. But it's like a seasonal thing, or it depends on my mood, or lately I haven't liked this kind of deck all of a sudden, but it comes back around, I think, after a while.
Now, I do have to add, there have been decks that I got when I was first learning to read tarot, like that were very much rooted in Rider-Waite traditional imagery, and the images kind of got the message across, but they didn't really connect the way that the ones that I use all the time do. And no, I don't touch those ever. And then I just leave them in the shelf, leave them in the cabinet, and don't touch them.
Anybody else? Any things to add?
For me,
Hecsen, why are you muted? Oh, you're not. Okay.
No, yeah, I was muted because of the background noise over here. So I didn't want to like interrupt you guys, so I muted my my microphone. For me, I'll tell you one deck I didn't know that I would connect with the way I did. And that was the Cosmic Tarot. I love the Cosmic Tarot. I fell in love with the deck. I thought those white borders were hideous. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mind borders. I swear to God. I have some border decks that have pretty borders and stuff like that. But okay, so I thought that the borders took away from the artwork. So I didn't think I could connect with the deck as much as I did after I trimmed and edged it. And that really like oh my God, like that deck has my heart. It has a special place in my heart. I love.
Also, yes, a lot of it is the artwork. So when you get a deck that has gorgeous artwork and gaudy, massive borders, you're like, could you get rid of these?
I hate huge borders. It's like so distracting. All I see is like the white.
You put the art in a box. Could you like uncage it, please?
Schiffer Publishing has been really bad with that. That's like the Star Tarot and stuff. And oh my God, the Star Tarot is gorgeous, but those fucking borders have got to go.
Like this one has borders, but the borders add to the card. Like they.
Oh wait. Unless you have like this deck that's like, oh my God, like this, you guys. Look at that massive border. Look at it.
Again, could you like take the box off the deck, please?
Yeah, time to trim it.
borders? Can we not, please, right now?
Snip,
Like,
snip, snip.
if you're gonna do borders, make them add to the art.
Exactly. Yes.
Distract and subtract.
Well, one of my other favorite decks, the Arthurian Legend, has borders, but the borders are decorated really pretty. And oh my god, I forgot the name of it. Oh, my Ethereal Visions also has the borders around the cards, but it's incorporated in the art in such a way that it looks nice. I think the Ghost and Spirits Tarot also has a border. In the front, it's okay because it's like a vintage colored type paper border, but then in the back, it has that hideous white border that just no.
I'm like
Awful.
obsessed with borderless decks right now.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
got more tarot decks.
I think if I was to win the lotto, I would release older decks that are no longer in print. That would
But,
look so much better without the damn border.
See, that's a good border.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
taking
border.
away from the art.
Yeah, that doesn't take anything away from the art. I like that border.
Absolutely.
Do that.
And I don't even mind if they have like a tiny, tiny thin border of white. It's when it's like a literal inch of white border that you're like,
Like even my beloved standby Mystic Fairy has these gold borders around the edges, but and all this filigree, but it's not taking away from the art and making it where you're distracted and
I
it
like
looks like
that
you put
border
the art
too.
in a box.
I like that border too.
That's how you do borders.
Well, talking about trimming and edging, Crystal Waters also asked, what about edging? What markers do you use? Do you do one card at a time or several?
I use Sharpies, and I don't specifically use chisel tip. I have used like the felt tip ones. They work. Do one card at a time. Or your cards will stick together.
I'll be honest with you, I have to use chisels because if I don't use chisels, I'm all over the card.
right. It's like you're
I
like,
don't have Parkinson's, but I swear when I'm doing the edging, I'm like, ah!
Yes, this is edged with Sharpie, the green Sharpie, but be really careful because your cards will stick together if you do who try to do the whole deck.
or you also might with bleeding, right? If you do
Yep.
multiple.
Or it can bleed onto the card, which is actually what happened to my Antique Anatomy, is that it's some of the ink bled onto the card, but it ended up looking like it belonged there because it's an antique looking deck. So yay.
Yeah, so for me, when I edge my decks, I use the Sharpie chisel tip, or if I'm doing like the more metallic-y colors, like the gold and the silver, I'll then use the, what is this? The Winsor and Newton available on
Which
Amazon.
are so expensive. I was like, I am not paying that for a damn marker.
We'll drop how much on a tarot deck? We'll not drop how much on the marker edges.
I'm going to be honest. I've used black Sharpie, I've used different brand markers, and my Tired of Vampires by Ian Daniels, I edged in red marker, and it wasn't Sharpie, it was a red marker, permanent marker from the dollar store. That came in a 10-pack of different colored permanent markers for $1 from Dollar Tree, and it worked perfectly fine. And I have no transfer. I don't get any transfer in my hands anymore. It literally, probably the first or two uses of it, I did because of the red, but afterwards it stopped. Like I have no transfer of red ink in my hands.
So this
Actually, I've used non-Sharpie markers.
Said this, and I have heard this several times now that people have been using Crayola markers, like the fat things that are like washable, and they work awesome. That's my next project. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And I have used non-Sharpie like art markers. Those work fine. But again, only if you can do it without a chisel tip. Because if you're depending on that chisel tip to keep you straight, art markers don't have that.
Yeah, I cannot do it. I have to have the chisel tip. I just cannot do it. Otherwise, I am all over the place.
It's like fail or like line. And you're like, what?
Damn it! And I always have by the way, the other tip is, because I'm a fuck up, I do it all the time, is have Q-tips and alcohol right next to you. So if you do make a fuck up, if you do it quick and you wipe it off with the Q-tip dipped in rubbing alcohol, it will take it off 90% of the time.
Also, I found makeup wipes will work. If you like very quickly rub makeup wipes on the card very quickly, just a little bit, not enough to saturate the card, just a quick swipe, you can get it off.
No way, really, Maya? She says she uses the highlighter markers. No kidding. I've had a couple that I thought, I wonder if this would work.
For those
You
of
are
you
way braver than me.
that are afraid, get like a little trick if you want to practice is get like a plain deck of playing cards and just kind of practice on that.
Yep.
Before you attempt a tarot deck. Unless you're me, where I literally started with like a tarot deck that I actually liked, and I was like, oh, I actually got through it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Unless you're like me or Lucy and you're just gonna dive in head first and go for it.
Right.
Dollar store, cheap pack of playing cards. Practice on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did too. And I'm sure you guys have all seen my fuck up decks. When I started, I did like 4 decks the same goddamn night and didn't know that you needed to do them all separate, each card separately. So I did the whole damn deck and just set them there to dry. And boy, did they stick together and ruin 4 goddamn decks first time I did it.
Oh gosh.
One card at a time, people.
One card at a time, please.
You do not have to keep them separate for very long. I have a mat I lay out and I put maybe 10 cards on it. By the time I get to the last one, I can start bringing back the other ones, putting them in a pile, setting them aside, starting again. But one at a time. Okay, where the heck did it go? I can't get this off the screen if I can't find it. Oh, I'm such a loser. All right, hold on.
You are not a loser. Or I will not
There
do
it
any
is.
of this negative shit. I will come through this screen.
All right. Oh, I will. I'm thinking, waiting. I haven't edged or trim. I haven't even paid attention to the edges. Oh, as far as trimming, I have heard a lot of people say they do it with scissors. Not a chance in hell. My decks, that they would all be different sizes. I'm not that patient. I use a guillotine, you know, the paper cutter thing. And I know people cringe. I've never had a problem with it though. As long as you keep the edge sharp, it works great. You just have to, and again, you have to practice with it and know this is where I want the card cut. So I usually actually, after I make the first cut, if I'm like, okay, yes, I think that's exactly where, you just put a little bit on the very edge so you know where it's going to cut it. I make a marker, a Sharpie marker. This is where this edge of the card needs to be. So I put that edge on there and chew. Otherwise, forget it. There's no way
I have a pair of scissors that will fit all the way up this card. Guillotine it shall be.
I've used scissors on all my decks that I've trimmed.
Oh, see, you have the patience to do that though, Hecsen. I would be like, nope, I'm bored.
I would be like, nope, I'm bored.
I haven't even attempted like trying to cut up a deck.
Now that is nerve-wracking.
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't really think about that. I do not, because I just assume they want what I want. Marge says, do you guys ask the cards if they want to be customized? Nope, they're my cards, damn it.
Nope,
which is
they're
funny.
my cards, and they will look the way I want them to.
Which is funny. I just don't see the cards as having any power. It's the universe's power and the querent's power with their guides and my power to look at the cards and interpret and the cards.
And again, me coming from a more pantheistic viewpoint, to me, everything is the power of the universe, multiverse, whatever you want to call it, the interconnected power that all of us witches and pagans are tapping into. It's all that. So like this is a card. This is a card. The power comes from when I put the power in it.
Absolutely. Do you guys round
Yes,
your
I
corners?
wouldn't-
I always do.
I didn't ask permission or anything. I spent my money on buying the deck,
Right.
and I will connect with the deck how I want to connect with it. I've invested in the deck, and the deck will look how best I want it to look so that I can work with it most effectively. I see it as a tool, and I will adapt the tool so that I can use it the best that I can use it. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I get what's behind the question, and there's an element of respect for the deck, respect for the cards and the tool. If you see it as a tool, good craftsman always respects his tools, takes care of them, and doesn't treat them shoddily. But no, I don't go as far as to ask permission. Going back to the earlier, I use scissors to trim. I recently trimmed my Druidcraft so there is no borders, just the title at the bottom, and I've done that with scissors, and it turned out fine.
I'm so jealous.
I mean,
I do
I
not.
mean, and this is a good example actually of that why I didn't ask, because when the deck came in its original form with the full borders, I just couldn't use the deck because the cards were too big. So from a practical point of view, I needed to trim something off the cards to be able to actually use them. So it was more out of necessity rather than, well, is it okay? Well, it's going to have to be okay. Otherwise, I'm not going to use the deck, because my hands aren't big enough to shuffle the deck and to use the cards. And for a while, I just had the green border around. You can see the green border at the bottom. I had the green border around, and recently I thought I'm going to try cutting that green border off as well, and just having it like that, and just title at the bottom. And that was just because I felt like making a change, and it's made a difference now to how I connect with the deck.
It's such a beautiful deck trimmed.
No,
I know.
actually,
I'm totally going to trim mine.
Pat actually
But of
asked a
course, now
question
I've
in the
done
chat
that.
about have you ever lost connection after her
Yeah.
trimming or edging a deck? No, actually, I've actually gotten more connected to a deck after changing it.
By trimming each card and edging each card one by one. For example, me, when I usually trim, I look at the artwork while I'm trimming. I don't trim from the back side. I look at the front side. So it's a connection you're making to that image.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh my God, and it's a calling. It's a calling that you get from the deck. Hey, maybe I need to be trimmed and edged. And I have not regretted trimming and edging any of the few decks that I have trimmed and edged. I do not regret it. I mean, my connection with them has gotten so much better.
But also, like I said, to me, when you have borders that I really don't like on a deck, to me, it looks, I'm literally looking at this deck like, could you let the art out of the cage, please? I want that border off so I can see the art.
It's kind of like when I'm grinding up herbs. A lot of the time I will hand grind it. And a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just use like a coffee grind or something? The reason being is because when you grind it by hand, you're infusing that spell with your own energy and actually taking the time and effort to connect with it. So for me, it's like when I'm sitting there edging every single card individually, and well, when I attempt to trim them, I will trim them individually. But it's like you're infusing your own essence, your own energy into the card to connect with it more. That's how I say it.
Yes. And I have to say, Stephen, I am so trimming my Druidcraft now. I've had it for years, and I love Druidcraft, but I don't use it very much. And I think it's because I'm like, and I have big hands, but it's so clumsy to try to deal with it. I'm so trimming that bad boy. I gotta find my guillotine now in my house. Ha. No idea. I'll have to find
May
it.
the odds be ever in your favor.
No kidding. Oh my God. Well, here, I can show you guys this. Look at this is a tile of this is the upstairs living
Good
room.
luck. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hunger Games fans will know what I just did.
Yes.
Bad. All right. Be anything asks. Do you read for yourselves? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Freaking
When you're learning to read, you're going to learn to read for yourself before you read for anyone else.
Yep, it's a whole lot easier to learn to connect with the cards when you're reading alone to yourself.
Mhm.
It's a whole lot easier to look at the card and pull a random card and be like, I don't remember what this means, and look it up.
Bless you, Hecsen.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I mainly read for myself. I read, but as I say, after my last reading experience, I might not wish to continue reading for myself.
Also, I will point out, because of that question, tarot can be more than just a divinatory practice. Is for divining things for other people. It can also be something you use for yourself to help yourself develop and grow.
Mhm.
It can be something that's very
one of the main
internal.
things. Yeah, that's one of the main things I
introspective.
use it for.
I think
Yeah, I mainly use it, or have used it for personal development. From that point of view, it's helped me to change and see things from certain points of view that I'd not considered before. It's revealed certain things about me. It's challenged me in certain areas, which is probably what the latest reading is probably doing as well. And I'm just doing the normal thing of reacting like, but I don't want to deal with that just yet. But I'll come around to it as usual, and I'll probably, and I'm probably only seeing perhaps a negative aspect because of that particular card that I've seen. I mean, the rest of the spread wasn't too bad. I'm just focusing on that one card, and I need to see that card in the context of the others around it. But we always we always focus on the one card, don't we? And we think, well, that just ruined the whole reading. Well, it hasn't.
Well, forget it.
It really hasn't.
Lucy, oh my God.
It may be some shadow work. This is the season for shadow work. I mean, I need to take that card, look at it, and see what message it might be giving to me, what I can learn from it, and that kind of thing. But yeah,
which is one of the main ways I use tarot.
And that's how you use tarot. That's how I've used it in reading for myself, and I've grown a lot, mainly through working with tarot, and also being with you guys and learning new things and everything. That helps me to grow as well, and seeing things from other people's points of view as well, because we've all got different perspectives and ideas about tarot. When we read, and we gain that for reading for ourselves, and we can share that experience with each other, and that helps us gain even better understanding when we read for ourselves or other people again. So it's not all sweetness and roses all the time, but it's effective, it's powerful, it can get to the heart of an issue often quicker than any therapist that you might go and see, and because it taps into that primal archetypal imagery and symbolism that we as humans all share. So I think it gets deep within to the innermost authentic parts of our souls and taps into that, and that's why I feel that tarot is effective both for ourselves and for use with other people.
It's interesting that because I was just thinking about that whole aspect of like why a lot of people are nervous to read for themselves. And then, especially when you're learning, and then I came to the realization, because before you understand what tarot is, you have that misconception that it's the ability to see into the future, that we're going to be like, okay, on Wednesday at 3:15, you're going to get hit by a bus. No, the reality and expectation is it's not that. It's, oh, okay, a bus is coming, girl, step on over to the sidewalk kind of aspect, that you're like, we're giving the insight and the tool to be able to see the outcome and the different paths you can take.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's the fear of reading for yourself, thinking, "Ooh, I don't want to know what my future is going to be." But it's like, it's okay to realize, it's okay to know, okay, this is where I want to get, and these are the different options of how I can get there.
Also, it helps to bear in mind that your future isn't set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least not in my belief. If you believe in predetermined and stuff, then that's fine.
You guys know that analogy? Do you know that analogy? That's exactly what I was going to say. The riverbank. Somebody said at some point, and I didn't make this up, but I can't remember where I learned it from. So I always just say, someone once said that tarot is like when you have a riverbank. And you see the riverbank is showing you, oh, look, the river flows this way. And now it's going to go around the bend and flow this way. And now, oh, it's going to turn left and it's going to go this way. And is there any way of changing that? Yeah. You dig a hole right through and go straight through. You can still change that. It doesn't mean it's only going left right here and there's nothing you can do about it. That's part of the point of tarot, is to look at that thing coming down the pike, that energy that is on its way, and say, okay, hold on. Is this what I want it to be? Is there something that I need to do? Is there some kind of shadow work that I need to do and step back and look at how I can change that a little differently? And then I to make sure that that doesn't go that way.
Also, your tarot reading doesn't have to be for the future at all. It can be telling you what's going on right now that you're not paying attention to. So it often, for me, the tarot cards are not telling me what's coming at me from the future. No, it's telling me what I'm dealing with right now, that I'm just putting blinders on and going, I don't want to see this right now. So, and then it's like, and it's the tarot going, no, bitch, listen.
I want to show something to Lucy because he's not going to believe it. Oh my God. So, talking about Patrick Valenza, look what he just posted on Instagram. He says, lost souls here at Fenwood Asylum, waiting patiently to unleash the new year. He's releasing puppets. Puppets!
I'm going to the jump here. Really? Right as I'm going to the jump here?
Lucy is going to have a hard year.
I'm getting at least
you
one.
do know, Lucy, a year is 12 months.
You sure you don't want to, like, put some parameters on that?
I'm not going to make any more. And then it could be like, why?
Like, literally just ended depth year this or today, and honey, you might want to put some parameters on that depth year.
I'm going to be emailing him in 2021 being like, so Patrick, remember in 20 when you released some puppets? I was in my depth year. Do you think you can make one just for me?
Yep. I don't think it counts either. If you pay him and tell him not to send it to you until 2021, I don't think that
doesn't count.
Along with your depth year.
Hey, Patrick, put this on the side for me till 21. Thanks.
Oh, that's a good one. Maya said, I heard someone say that a tarot reading is like a snapshot. It reads the energy of that moment, but it could change the next moment.
And again, that is exactly referencing your future's not set in stone. You determine what's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you freeze?
We lost her. Lea lynn, are you there? Are you there?
Okay. Maybe side or something.
Yeah. Aha!
Oh,
Oh,
she's
I heard
in.
her.
She's in and out. Okay.
So Peggy says, "What's a depth fear?" Lucy, you want to feel that? I'll tell you right now, I will never be in a depth fear. That's just not me. Go ahead.
So, like, the general consensus is that it's basically focusing on what you already have. So for example, for me, it's going to be focusing on not really spending on things I don't necessarily need. It's about taking what I already have and focusing more on going in depth with them. So for example, instead of buying more tarot decks, I'm going to take the decks I already have and really hone in and focus on every single, well, okay, probably one deck and going, okay, this is what this deck is really, really about.
And that's what my depth year was about, was going in deeper to what was already in my practice, stripping it back to what do I really connect with? What is really at the core of my practice is without all of this stuff. And it's part of why this year I've been so adamant about pointing out on my channel the point that you don't need all the stuff. You can do this with nothing.
Yeah. It's kind of like with oils. So instead of buying all these individual oils that are specifically for a certain thing, I will research something and be like, okay, this is how you can actually make it and make that oil with the herbs that I already have.
Yes. And also for me, it literally became stripping away. Don't use the altar. Don't use there's all these other things to cast your spells. Do it the way you did when you started, because that's where I needed to go, was that I needed to reconnect with that basic level that I came from when I started practicing, and where I could pull the energy to me from the earth, give it back, cast the spell, didn't need any tools. I needed to get back to that because I had gotten so into all of the tools and the accessories. And that's what they are. They're accessories. If you don't have that connection to begin with, the tools are just objects.
Yeah, so it's kind of like going back to the basics of when we first started our craft and realizing, well, for me, it's like, obviously I tend to get wrapped up in having like the latest this, the latest tarot deck, the latest journal, that I kind of lose myself. So this whole year is about going back to the basics, realizing this is what set me down my path and my passion and my fuel and drive for everything I do, and realizing, okay, there are different ways to create. My cat going crazy. Create that. Create
different ways to create that same energy. Again, yes, okay. It's very much that, where it's like, okay,
remember,
what really
remember.
All right, we're gonna wind down pretty soon. A couple more questions, and then we're gonna wind down. So, we can all eat before popcorn party for one thing, and you can relax a little before you have to be back on. So Heather wants to know, when you pull a card, do you pull the top card or randomly from the deck, a one card pull?
Whatever I feel at the time.
Yeah, because there are some times when I will take the deck, I'll actually spread it out, and then I'll just kind of like let my hand drift over it. And then whenever I feel something, I will then pull the card. And then there are other times when I'm just shuffling, and then I'll be like, oh, first card, this is what it is. So I guess it really does depend on what you feel at the moment.
It's intuitive, and sometimes it's off the top, and sometimes I will feel like I want to pull something out of here and be like, oh, that card. Okay.
Well, if anybody's ever watched my daily draws, you will know that actually I do both, because I will go down the deck, and then I will split the deck at the point where then I will bring that to the top and pull it off the top and reveal the card. So I do reveal it from the top after I've randomly chosen where the card is going to be pulled from in the deck. So it is an intuitive going down the deck. I'm going to split the deck there, cut the deck so that that card's on top, and then pull it off the top. So I sort of like do the combined approach. Another variation on that is when I do a spread. If I do a particular spread, I will do that for each position. I won't just shuffle the cards and say, like, if it's a 3-card spread, I won't shuffle the cards and then take the top 3. I'd like to do it a bit more intuitive than that. I just shuffle the cards, cut, take the card off for the first card, and repeat for the remaining 2. So that's how my approach. It's whatever intuitively feels right for you at the time.
Exactly. And for me, it's all of the above. Depends on my mood. There are times that I'm digging through there and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know, I haven't felt it yet. Oh wait, there it is. And there are other times that I will do a whole spread after shuffling, thinking about the spread. I'll do the whole spread, one right after the other from the top. And there are other times if I'm looking at shadow work and I'm asking about shadowy stuff, that I'll take from the bottom because it's shadow. Just depends, whatever works for you. Someone asked about, and I don't know, it was a long time ago now, about spreads. What spreads do you use?
Most of the time, just a 3-card spread or a 1-card or draw.
It really depends because on what you feel. Because sometimes if I'm like, okay, I just want a quick reading, I'll do like a simple 3-card spread. If I want more in depth, I'll do the Celtic. If I want something else, I'll do a different spread. I guess it just depends on what you're in the mood for. Crickets.
I know.
Yeah, one card draw for me. And as I say, someone mentioned about oracle cards earlier, about what do we feel about oracle cards, and yeah, I'm all in favor of oracle cards. When I do my daily draws, I take a tarot card and I always match it with an oracle card, and sometimes the way that the two combine together is really effective. And I think I was going to mention something else and I've forgotten where my train of thought was then. What was the question again? Yeah, Squirrel. What was the question again?
Spreads.
Oh, spreads. Yeah, mine's a 1-card, or if I'm just doing a reading, it 3 cards usually is the most I will pull. I may do a 4th if I want a clarifier. Maybe that 4th will be from an oracle deck other than the tarot that I'm reading with. Unless there's a specific spread like Jen's spread that she showed earlier for the 2020 one with the 9-card spread that I tried earlier on. I probably wishes that I didn't. Now and again I will try a spread that's suggested like that. But usually it's a 1-card pull or 3 cards and see how the 3 cards work together. But there are books of spreads. You can create your own spreads. You can get spreads from other people. You can do what you want. Pinterest is full of them. Yes.
Again,
it's what you're wanting from the spread.
I just have to say real quick, sorry to interrupt, but Dana said I literally paid off my whole surgery with the Squirrel Tribe money. That is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay.
We're so happy to hear that, honey. I'm glad that we can take something off of your mind. You have enough on your mind. I'm super glad about that.
Oh.
She's just so sweet. She makes me cry. We love you, Dana. No problem. Everybody knows. And for me, I almost the same spread every morning. If it's my draw, I'm always asking the same 3 questions. The first card is for what can I expect today? Second card is what am I looking out for? And the third card is who's helping me? What's helping me? What energy can I search for to help? Or is there a person that I'm supposed to look to help? And then other stuff like today's spread, I find it wherever, you just do whatever calls to you, whatever feels right.
What was that phrase that we use so much again?
If
It works for you. It works. Wait. Oh, I love March.
I know I saw a question earlier about if you're shuffling and a card jumps out at you, what do you do? Usually I just make it part of the spread.
Yep. Me too.
I had a chat with them the other day about jumping cards. So it's like sometimes, because I know some people don't use that card, they'll just kind of toss it in and reshuffle. And then other people will use it because they feel like if it jumped out, it jumps out for a reason and you need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what it feels like for me.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, this needed to be seen right away. And sometimes I'm like, nope, I'm just an idiot and I dropped half the decks. Who cares? Just depends on what happens.
And then there's me. It'll jump out. I'll look at the card and be like, oh, no. Put it back in. Like,
Oh, that
There
wasn't
we go again with the-
that just fell out.
Oh no, I don't want that card. As I draw the devil.
Oracle decks too. Someone did say something about Oracle decks. It's all up to you. I use Oracle decks in tandem with all of my tarot reads, almost all of them. For me, it gives me more information about the energy of the card. So sometimes cards can be a little bit more elusive, or if you're like, gee, I wonder if that's about work or if that's about, my love life. And you didn't ask a specific question before. A lot of times the Oracle can make that more clear. So you can be like, oh, yeah, okay, this is really about my love life. Or this is really, whatever. It gives you an idea of where that energy came from and where it needs to be applied. Okay, how we doing? Anybody have anything else to say before we wrap this up? Hecsen? Sorry, am I interrupting you?
Happy New Year!
I will. This last one is about reversals, which I don't really read that much, but we can ask it real quick and see if anybody here wants to answer. I know most of you at least do not read reversals, but if you are stuck with that whole reading means, then do you look into it?
Actually, I just build the meaning of the reversal into the card. So when I pull the Fool, and you know that the upright meaning is the beginning of the journey, he taking that leap of faith. If I want to build the reversal in, and it's don't start the journey. You're not ready yet.
Mm.
And I'll just build that into the meaning of the card. What do the cards around it tell me? If I pulled another card that's saying maybe hold off. Okay, that's the message I'm taking.
That's true, Dana. That's right. Oh, I love it.
Yes, exactly.
All right, guys. I think this was an awesome live. I think we should do this more often. I'm
Definitely.
thinking I
Yes.
don't know, at least quarterly, maybe monthly. Because we get lots of good questions.
Once a month.
Even though they're all pussies and they wouldn't come on live to ask their questions, I'll forgive them this time, I guess. But I expect at
Maybe
least
they'll
one
get more
person to
comfy
ask
next time.
We'll see. So from here, it'll be a break. It'll be a little over an hour, and Lucy and Dave will be live for live popcorn party to count down to the New Year on the East Coast.
Party!
Yay! thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you all for coming and asking your questions and being so patient with us. And this was awesome. I loved it. Quickly. Your number one deck for 2019.
This might hurt.
Arcana.
Let's see it. There we go.
Oh my God! For the whole year.
Number one deck for 2019.
For the whole year.
The whole
Yeah,
year.
the whole year. There's one deck we used more than other the whole year.
This one.
I have to think of the whole year. What did I use?
That's an easy answer.
Dark Mansion.
I'm sorry, but you gotta love the Dark Mansion. I mean,
Oh, it's a gorgeous deck. I just don't own it.
Can't remember. Like, my brain is going totally blank. I don't know about you, Steven, but I'm like, I don't know. Did I use Squirrel this year?
Well, I'll tell you what it was based on. I based it on the fact that giving readings to others, like, this was the most successful for me. Like, clear readings, getting clear readings down to the point. That's what I based it off on.
All right. I know there was a deck too. Do you think I could think of one fucking deck? No. Oh wait.
What's the number one that you're working with now?
No, because they're too new. I don't want to use new decks because.
No.
But hold on, I'm trying to think of the one that I was using a whole lot this year, and for like every reading I did almost, I was using that one freaking.
Yep.
And there is a deck, and before I go, I have to know it because it'll drive me crazy. Oh! I totally know what it is. It's that my Tarot of the Unknown from the cartoon. God, I love that deck. God, I love that deck. It's just awesome. It's a Tarot of the Unknown for me. Steven, any idea?
Deck of the year.
Are we talking purchased or used in 2019?
I would say just used.
I would say used.
Yeah. I would say my Druidcraft that I showed earlier. I always distinctly, whenever I use it, I always get good readings. So I would say Druidcraft. I can't remember.
I've been so buying it.
I think I bought it in 2018. I think so. I might have bought it this year. I don't know. Some of the decks I can't remember when I bought them. So, but from what I've used, it's the Druidcraft. Just got the Modern Spellcasters Tarot.
You're gonna love that one.
I actually love this deck, and it's really speaking to me in a surprising way, actually. So that's my favorite of the year that was purchased. So most recently. So
Yay!
Purchase for me would be Janasa Jaws, and I cannot wait to get it.
You don't even know yet. You might get it and hate it.
No, I've seen it. I saw it in Tarot Stock.
I know. I'm picking on you. You have been so psyched about that deck all year long.
All freaking year. I waited all 2019 for her to put it up on sale. The 4th edition last week.
Yeah, I know. Lea Lynn?
All is
Like I said, Arcana. Arcana. This deck is gorgeous and I love it and I will.
Lucy?
Wait, are we talking about our favorite deck of all or this year?
Both.
Oh, this year it's This Might Hurt, but then my favorite of all time that I still use is the Slow Holler.
Oh, I love that deck.
That deck is so nice. It is so nice.
If I do all
I
time.
don't know
It's
if I
gotta be
love it
Mystic
because
Fairy.
I don't have it and I haven't seen it in person though. So I feel like you have to bring it to Witchypalooza so I can look
Oh.
at it and be able to say, nah, it's not for me, which I know is not going to happen, but I'm really hoping.
Like, if I say deck that I've deck of all time, it's gonna be Mystic Fairy Tarot because it's literally my soul deck. It's the deck that I connect with without fail. But for
Absolutely.
this particular year, this one. Arcana.
Yay. All right, guys. I love you all. We will see you at Lucy and Dave crossed paths, by the way, for Popcorn Party, the last one of 2019. Or for Stephen, who won't be there. Hopefully you get some sleep, Stephen. The first one of 2020. I love you guys.
Bye.